Good morning. It's about 9:02. Welcome to the Thursday meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. If you would please rise, and we're going to have Pastor Clive Knights lead us in prayer. Pastor, if you would please hit the button and turn the light on. Just push the button, the light will come on. No, sir, right there.
Thank you very much. Let's pray together. Lord, we thank you for the privilege of serving you. We ask you to bless this Board of County Commissioners and the staff of the county in their important work today. Bless and guide them through your Holy Spirit. In this Lenten season, we ask you to forgive our many sins, those times when we have been selfish, when we have made bad choices, and for those things that we haven't done, that we should have done. We thank you for your gracious forgiveness as we intend to strive to do better in future. We seek your inspiration, Lord, in the further progress of our county, and we thank you for the many blessings that we have had. We commend it all to your unfailing love in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Commissioner Salter, would you lead us in the pledge, please, sir?
Please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you haven't already done so, please take a moment and silence your cell phones so we don't interrupt each other. Next item is approval of the minutes of the February 24th, 2014 and February 27th, 2014 special meetings. They're in your binder there. I move approval by objection. Hearing none, it passes. Next is approval of the agenda. I'll begin on my right with Commissioner Salter.
No additions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I have two. There is a resolution that I'll be asking that we pass after the lionfish presentation, and that resolution is in your folder. It was added a little late, so you may not have noticed it. The Florida Association of Counties is going to try to get all 67 counties to adopt the resolution, and after the presentation, I think it'll be self-explanatory. Also, under admin, please add an item 1B, and that would be site selection, and that's all I have. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 just information items I'd like to put out today, wherever Chairman thinks they should fall in.
Okay. Let's put those, I'll put them at the end of admin, and that's Cole. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add an item regarding some information on beach renourishment and a request that SRIA made to the governor's office.
Okay, sir, and we'll make that number 11 on the admin. Mr. Walker? And staff? Okay. Next is the proclamation. Today, we have with us Jerry Kendall. Mr. Kendall, are you with us here? Thank you. If you would, please come up and we'll read the proclamation. County of Santa Rosa Proclamation. Whereas March is Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our everyday heroes, those who reach out to help their neighbors when they're in need, and whereas American Red Cross heroes are on the front lines every day, they volunteer their time, give blood, take life-saving courses, or provide financial options to those in need. And whereas we would like to remember our heroes here in Santa Rosa County who give help to people in need. They work tirelessly to help in times of disaster, when someone needs life-saving blood or the comfort of a helping hand. They provide round-the-clock support to members of the military, veterans, and their families, and teach life-saving classes in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. Whereas across the country and around the world, the American Red Cross responded to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, and the tragedy at Boston Marathon and a Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. And whereas when an injured service member ends up in a hospital far from home, the American Red Cross offered comfort. When a hospital patient needed blood, American Red Cross blood donors helped them. When a lifeguard jumped in to save a drowning child or to help someone stepped up to help a heart attack victim, the American Red Cross was there. And whereas we dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2014 as American Red Cross Month and encourage all citizens to support this organization in its noble humanitarian mission, passed and adopted by the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County, Florida, this 13th day of March 2014, signed by me as chairman. If you come up, please, sir, we will get some pictures. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. We're odd numbers, so we're going to center you. Let's do it the other way. Get you in the middle. Bring you up. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next on the agenda is a presentation on lionfish eradication and control measures. Chris Berlinde. Chris, are you with us? I hope you all pay close attention to this. It absolutely shocked me the first time I saw this presentation, and this is right here in our backyard.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Verlinde, and I'm your Florida Sea Grant Extension Agent. I work for the University of Florida in Santa Rosa County. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the lionfish issue. This is actually a huge issue, and so my brief presentation, I'm just going to give you kind of the basics of what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you a quick 1-minute YouTube video, but this video basically shows how these fish prey on other animals. Oh, I'm really a walker. So if you guys can watch this video. Watch that. So I just wanted to show you that just quickly because that's kind of why the population has been increasing in the Gulf of Mexico. It's been established in Florida. The first sightings were in the South Atlantic in 1985, and then since then their populations have dramatically increased. And on this next map, this is from USGS, excuse me, and you can see the dates of where the sightings have occurred throughout the Atlantic, and then it moves down into the Bahamas and then Caribbean. Now, keep your eye on the Gulf of Mexico. 2009, still not much. 2010, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And this is just, I just wanted to show this because this is how fast that these animals are spreading in the Gulf of Mexico. And there's been reports of them being sighted in the Pensacola Bay system. They're near shore. They could, their populations can increase. Part of the problem with, I gotta get this button, part of the problem with them here in our local areas is there's, in the northern Gulf of Mexico, is that there's a lack of research. And so that's going to be one of the needs that I think that is identified as far as gaps, and that's going to be addressed in a regional workshop that's going to be held in Escambia County, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So now basically I'll just give you a little information on their biology and their feeding habitats, and then go on to some of the potential impacts from the lionfish invasion, and then talk about things that we can do. So basically these fish are native to the Indo-Pacific region, warm waters, and there's two different species in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic, the red lionfish, and then also the devil ray fish. And they're a member of the scorpion fish family, and they do actually have spines, and they have spines on their dorsal fins and their anal fins and their pelvic fins, which means that, and they're poisonous, they have toxins in them. When you go to grab them, I mean, the potential for injury is great. And so there's a lot of safety handling techniques that we do, anything that we do promote, that we want to encourage safety handling, whether it be catching them, and then, or preparing them for food or for using for different types of products that people might be interested in. Okay, so just basically, they average about 6 to 12 inches. Some can get bigger. In the Caribbean, they've been caught as big as 20 inches. They basically hang around reefs. They have been seen on sand bottoms also, though. They feed primarily during the day, or during the evening, but they have been known to feed at night. There's not a whole lot of known about predation in their natural habitat. And then here in the Gulf of Mexico, there's not really, and Atlantic, there's not any known predators, and that's another reason why the populations have increased so quickly also. They've also been known to enter estuaries in their native habitats, and I think that that's one of our fears right now, is because if you think of our estuaries, the nursery areas for our juvenile fish, shrimp, and crabs, that if they did get into the estuaries, there'd be plenty of food, and that could really present a problem. And that's why there's so much a growing effort for eradication and control of these fish. Excuse me. Okay, so another reason why their populations increase so fast is because they breed on an average of once a week. Sometimes they can breed every 3 days. Females will release between 20 and 30,000 eggs, which can mean that one female can release 1 million eggs in 1 year, which is a lot of eggs. The eggs actually, they think that one theory of how the fish actually got up into the northern Gulf of Mexico is that the eggs are in egg masses, and they may have floated up in the loop current and then settled on our reefs. And so that's one theory. I mean, there's other theories also, but that's again we really do have a research need for this lionfish. The juveniles basically eat crustaceans and small reef fish, while the big fish, basically, like you saw in that video, they eat basically anything that they can get in their mouths. And they primarily feed on small reef fish, but a lot of juvenile snappers and groupers, and important recreational and commercial fish, too. So basically what that means, and what I've kind of said, too, is that the impacts can be on our commercial and recreational fisheries. And if you think about that economically, just recreational fisheries in the state of Florida is a $7 million industry with, I can't even remember the amount of jobs, but it is huge. So it could have an impact not only in Santa Rosa County, but along the Gulf Coast. Also, we could lose biodiversity, and then we would have primarily some reefs, and actually in the Caribbean this is found, where there's primarily just lionfish on the reefs. And so these fish can really have a great impact on our fisheries. And then coastal tourism could be impacted if the fish continue to, if lots of them are found near shore, and more tourists, brush up against them and have stings, it could impact tourism somewhat. But I think that if that did happen, especially in our area, that like if there were fish found on the Navarre snorkeling reefs, that they'd be eradicated pretty fast. There'd be divers out there in a heartbeat, trying to keep them off. So I think that we're safe on that, but that is a potential that could, in some places. So basically, what eradication seems to work the best in the Caribbean, what studies have shown. But primarily, it's very labor intensive. It has to be done on a continual basis, not just one time. And you forget it. You need to remove at least 27% of the fish in order to even have somewhat of an impact. Studies have shown. There's been different things. Derbies and roundups work pretty well, but again, they're labor intensive and it's a lot of work to raise money for prizes and things like that. Bounties work sometimes, but sometimes, like if they're grant funded and the money runs out and there's no more incentive for divers to go out and catch fish. And again, one thing too, whenever you're promoting any of these things, that you promote the safe handling of the fish, because the sting is really, really painful. They equate it to like a stingray sting, if anybody's ever been stung by a stingray. And, but again, it is very, very painful. One thing that is really being promoted right now is to promote like lionfish products, things like divers catching lionfish and then selling them to restaurants. There's permits and licenses involved, but so that they can recoup some of their money that they've spent as far as on gas and equipment and air and things like that. And so that is so to create a fishery would be one of the ways to help reduce the populations. Different things have been done. Some people in Jacksonville are making earrings out of the spines. I actually have some on. But so there's different, to create a demand for the lionfish would be another thing too. And I think one of the most important things that they've been doing in the Caribbean and South Florida is to involve stakeholders, community or members, decision makers, divers, fishers, recreational and commercial, and get them involved in helping with the awareness and education and then the eradication of the lionfish. And then monitoring programs for control, to have people out there actually looking and finding out where these fish are and then reporting them to USGS and the Reef Environmental Education Foundation. And then, of course, the regional effort that's ongoing, and I'll talk about that in 1 minute. And then, of course, in outreach and education. So, like I said before, the control techniques primarily are spearfishing, and then hand nets, and then there's a lot of safety precautions to be taken in the control techniques. When you're using hand nets, you want to make sure that you have really strong gloves, because their fins can go through a regular dive glove. So they have like lots of different types of armored gloves that you can use, and you want to have a plastic bag, because if the fish, you don't want to rub against the fish, and so a plastic bag will protect you from that fish. Trapping is something that's kind of new and possibly will be done in the Gulf of Mexico to eradicate them from reefs. And then larval capture is something that might be a little bit more difficult. There's a lot of different organizations addressing the issue, and including NOAA, USGS. USGS is that website that I just showed you, and that is for reporting sightings of fish. And then the Reef Environmental Education Foundation is partnered with NOAA and USGA to kind of coordinate all the different sightings that are done. There's some smaller groups that have sightings too, but these are the major agencies that are monitoring. FWC is doing some education. And then locally, the Gulf Coast Lionfish Coordination is a group of divers that have formed a coalition, and they've been formed since fall, and they're moving very fast, and they're doing a lot of work as far as working with local chefs to promote lionfish in restaurants. The Orr House, and there's a couple other restaurants in Pensacola that actually are using lionfish on their menus that they're buying basically from divers. And they're doing things like they're organizing a lionfish tournament in May at the Floribama Yacht Club. And then and they're also working to promote awareness in education, of course, the use of lionfish projects, and then also proper handling techniques, and basically eradication of the lionfish. So So basically, that's okay. And then one other local organization that has been promoting rodeos is the Emerald Coast Reef Association. They're out of Okaloosa, Walton Beach, and they've done a lot of artificial reef deployment and now lionfish eradication and education. And this just basically says some of the needs, and I think I went over them. There's research gaps. We need management and action plans and policies, and that's one thing that's going to come out of this regional workshop in April is a working regional management plan, control strategies, education outreach, and of course, as with everything else, funding is really needed. So let me just quickly talk about the Lionfish Regional Workshop. Is basically we want to get people together and identify the resources of what people can do and what is out there as far as like people willing to capture fish, outreach and education, and we're going to address, the marketing issues and just kind of like it's almost like a survey of what resources that we have available and then kind of work from there and then create a management plan. And then lastly, like I said, the Gulf Coast Lionfish Coalition is having a lionfish roundup May 1st through 4th. And just let me say one thing about a roundup that was held in December by the Emerald Coast Reef Association. In one day, they caught more than 1,700 lionfish and that's local reefs too. So that's basically what I have for you. Any questions? Oh, let me tell you one thing. I always forget what I'm going to say. But I do have these these two documents from Sea Grant, one on is it safe to eat, and then also just a general lionfish information and some information on that regional workshop.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Chris, do the lionfish spread their eggs like some fish do, or do they carry it like roe?
I didn't hear it.
The lionfish, do they shed their eggs and spread them where they go into so they don't carry them like roe, they spread them out?
Right. They spawn, and then they're fertilized, and then they're turned into their egg mass.
Okay, and are they easily identifiable? I mean, if a diver or a snorkeler was to find
I'm not sure about that. I have not done the research or read a study on that, so I'm not really sure. I know that the females spawn, and then the egg masses end up on the top of the water and then float on the currents, travel on the currents.
The presentation that I heard at the Rotary Club, this thing looks like, what bullfrogs, how bullfrogs form a gelatinous mass of eggs. This does the same thing. It forms a huge gelatinous mass of eggs, and nothing will eat the egg mass.
Right.
They're not sure. They theorize that it's because the poison is already present in the egg mass, but nothing eats the egg mass. And to add insult to injury, you can still buy these things. You go to a pet store today, right here in Santa Rosa County, and they'll sell you a lionfish. Florida hasn't banned the importation of lionfish, nor have we banned the importation of the big python. I mean, a lot of people like the little ball python. That's not a problem. I'm talking about that thing that grows out to be 17, 18 feet and weighs 500 pounds. You can still buy those too in Florida. Legislature just won't deal with it. So Florida Association of Counties is trying to get all 67 counties to adopt the resolution we're fixing to talk about and show some solidarity, because apparently the pet store lobby is strong enough that the legislature won't tackle it without some prodding.
See, that's great. That's what we need is support from community leaders.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. I'd like to move the resolution now, and this is a copy of the one that Escambia County did, and it's sort of the template, and it's going to hopefully make its way around the other counties in the state. But it basically adds Santa Rosa County's support to the fact that we would like the legislature to ban the importation, sale, possession, whatever. And right now, one other comment, and then we'll move on. The best hope right now is to try to sterilize it like they did the tsetse fly, because they're so far out of hand now, there's no stopping them at the rate they breed. So what the research is trying to do is come up with a way to sterilize them so that they can't reproduce and hopefully kill them off that way. Anybody have any other questions or comments about the resolution? It's not numbered. Angie, how do we do that? How do we reference this agenda, this resolution?
The clerk will number it for us,
Okay.
whichever is next. I think it would be okay just to announce the title of the resolution.
Okay, well, I move approval without objection of a resolution by Santa Rosa County, Florida, to continue to support additional lionfish control efforts, providing for transmittal, providing for an effective date. And I do so without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Thank you very much for that. I think that if we can make that happen across the state, that we'll be in good condition. We have a public hearing at 9:30, and we cannot start any sooner than that, but it's okay to be late with it. So we'll move on into economic development. Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, we have no items today.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is Administrative Committee. Item 1A is discussion of updated programming and site configuration options for proposed judicial center by HOK Incorporated. And that's basically the presentation we had Monday.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and just to, one of the big takeaway that the board would be required to do today would be to confirm the programming of the judicial facility, which, if you noticed, there'd been the discussion Monday about inclusion of some of the clerk functions in there. Mr. Spencer has indicated an interest that could be taken out, go back to the true judicial facility concept, and confirm the programming square footage at the 156,399 square feet.
All right. We don't need to take any formal action on that?
I believe you ultimately will. I'm sure
Okay.
you're going to want to.
Yeah, Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we do need to talk about as Mr. Walker said, the programming that we want HOK to pursue. We don't want to get into mission creep with our judicial facility, and we've gone to the potential of 180,000 square feet on the high end with this. I think we need to bring it back to where we initially started, and let's just talk about the judicial facility itself and focus on that, and not include any of the other space that's excuse me, that's already accounted for in this building. Again, Mr. Spencer indicated that he was supportive of moving forward with that along those lines, kind of bringing it back where we were when we started, and that there will always be that opportunity to co-locate the other facility out there at a future date. But let's take this one step at a time and focus in on the judicial facility itself and get HOK to work along those lines. Again, you're talking about a lot of additional expense to put that other space inside the secured facility.
Okay, so are you going to make that a motion?
I will. May have some public
well,
comment.
We're not quite ready yet. The site, this particular part here, I mean, we're going to move ahead. If the public has some input about it, what we're talking about basically is there's been a request to add a considerable amount of square footage, and I agree completely with what Commissioner Lyncher just said. We don't need to do that. It would be that's in the nice to have category. It's not in the must have category, and we need to stay with the with the basics. So I think unless there's comment or objection from the board, I'll move approval by objection. Hearing none, that passes. Item 1B is site selection. These are my thoughts, and I want to share them with you for your consideration. I've spent a lot of time with the public in the last 3 weeks listening and talking about things in general, but particularly this comes up, and invariably it comes up. I want to read this so I don't lose any thoughts. The public acknowledges the need for a new courthouse, but they're adamant that no new property be purchased to build one. And I think we've all seen that. They also understand that by using the property in East Milton, that there are going to be additional traffic problems encountered in the near term until improvements can be made. Given apparently the stated preference for traffic delays over purchasing any new land on 90, which would also have a smaller but still material traffic problem, and the fact that the issue most likely will fail if it includes purchasing new property. It's my opinion that this board should reconsider the majority position regarding purchasing of land on 90 West, the piece that is the majority opinion at this point. And I think move forward with plans to use the East Milton site, given the fact that the public is willing and understands going into it that there's going to be traffic problems. There's going to be delays, and they seem to be okay with that because we made that very clear. And take a hard look at the East Milton site, or in the alternative, some other site that may be in county inventory that's usable. And I don't think we should sacrifice as the saying goes, throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's critical that we get a new courthouse. We desperately need it. And if the public is willing to tolerate the inconvenience, I say that we use the property we own, because they're in no mood to vote for a property purchase, in my opinion. So I think we need to take a really good look at using the East Milton site. A couple other supporting points that I've mulled over after I've heard them voiced here in this chamber is the fact that the connector road is in the long-range plan. Now, that means 10 years or more out, but at least it's in the plan or making its way to the plan. And the other bypass in Milton is in the plan. While we're at it, I think this would be a good place to have the staff evaluate the properties that the county holds in inventory, and let's identify those that we really need and those that we're using, and those that we're not, we need to try to take steps to put them back on the public market, advertise them for sale, etc. But those are my thoughts. I'd open this up for discussion from the board and then public input.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Salter.
we've heard from some of the folks who have come to the meetings talking about East Milton. We went through a process to get us where we are now. We looked at the geographical population study. We identified Avalon and Highway 90 as basically the central part of current population with a future look at that centralization as well. I think if you're going to make a $40 million investment and to put it in East Milton, where you have some of the poorest infrastructure in the county, doesn't make sense to me. The price of the land will be about 1% of the total cost of the project. And if you look at potentially getting a 1-cent sales tax, the property would be paid off in the first 15 to 16 days of the project. So here again, we went through a process, we had a vote. The people I talked to, they support Highway 90. I've talked to several businesses out in the Pace community, and they like the idea of having it on Highway 90 close to Avalon Boulevard. So I'm going to continue to support the current site that we have finalized. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'll just comment. My fear and my objection has always been not to the real estate, it's always been to the traffic. I've consistently been concerned about the capacity and traffic, and that issue doesn't seem to concern the public as much as it does me. I'm afraid we're going to lose the referendum. I mean, I agree with what you said. But I'm just saying that the input I'm getting, I can't poke a hole in anything you just said, Commissioner Salter, except that my gut feeling is that we won't win it won't pass muster with the voting public if we buy a piece of land. Commissioner Salter's, maybe Commissioner Lyncher. got a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've spoken to groups in the county about the location of the courthouse. I went to the Kiwanis Club in Milton yesterday and spoke to them at lunch, and not a single person advocated for the East Milton site. The only comments I had were that if we put it in East Milton, traffic would be a nightmare. Right now, you can go out there and look at the bridge and look at the traffic going through downtown Milton at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's a log jam on many days. If you put an additional 10,000 trips per month through downtown Milton, out to East Milton, you know, traffic is going to be horrendous right out of the gate, notwithstanding any growth that might occur out in East Milton. The connector road that was mentioned, the connector road from 87 South to 87 North is not in the work program. There have been preliminary studies that have been done. Right-of-way nor construction are in the work program. They're not programmed for 10 years from now. They're not programmed for 30 years from now. You know, those projects may come to pass in the future. There is absolutely no guarantee that they're going to be done in the next 25 years. The same thing with the expansion of 90 through Milton. Right-of-way, not in the program. Construction, not in the program. Again, 25 years from now, it may come to pass, but there is no guarantee. So what we will do is lock down downtown Milton with traffic. In addition to that, you know, we have 10,000 trips a month that are going to the courthouse, and that's a rough figure from the clerk's office. If we put it out in East Milton, you know, our travel time study showed that the most convenient area to put it was in that Highway 90 and Avalon general area. If you have 10,000 trips a month going out there, say that half of the population has to spend an extra 10 minutes to go out there. 10 minutes back. That's a third of an hour for each trip. If half the population, because look, Pace, it's going to take them longer. Milton, it's going to take longer. It takes longer to get from here to East Milton than it does from here to Avalon. Gulf Breeze is going to take longer. So say it takes half the population an extra 20 minutes. 5,000 trips, third of an hour, you're talking about 1,600 hours of wasted time per month. Figure $20 an hour for the average wage in Santa Rosa County. That's $32,000 a month in lost productivity. 12 months in a year, you're looking at $380,000, almost $400,000 a year in lost productivity for our residents every year for the next 75 years to save $1.4 million up front. And the figure that's always tossed around is $3.5 million for the acquisition of this property. That's not true. It's $1.4 million for the property. The construction costs, the site costs are going to be there regardless of where we put it, whether we put it on 90, whether we put it on East Milton. If cheap property is the only consideration, we need to go up near the Alabama line, buy some property in the middle of a farm, and put it up there. But it's not just about cheap property, though. It's about a location that's going to serve the residents for the next 75 or 100 years. And I think that's where what we need to be, that's where we need to focus. You know, the easy thing to do would be to say, okay, we'll shift it out there to property we already own. And we're going to compound our problems that we already have, and we're not going to be doing the best thing for the residents that are going to follow us.
I agree with your comments with one exception, and that is that people always find a way around the traffic. I live in East Milton. I come and go every day. I am very annoyed by the traffic load, so I take the interstate and come across that way.
But you're adding time to your trip.
Well,
and if you're coming from Pace and you go down to the interstate, you've added 15 minutes.
But my point is that operates to refute your number about the wasted productivity and everything. Now, if there was only one way out there and back, I'd have to agree with you completely, Mr. Lynchard. But there is an alternative, and so you can't say that because there's an alternative that people will blindly just queue up on 90 and continue to endure it.
But the alternative is still going to take you more time to travel there. Whether or not you go 90 or 10, it's going to take you longer. And I think 10 minutes is probably a fairly conservative estimate of the additional time it would take to travel from Pace to a judicial facility in East Milton versus the one at Highway 90 in Avalon?
We'll take public comments in a minute, so don't get antsy. Don't worry. You're not going to get left out. Anything else from any of the other commissioners? Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Jerry Cooey, 6049 Arnie's Way. I just, over and over and over, as a lifelong resident of Santa Rosa County, I think this is about our 5th rodeo on the courthouse. You understand that there's a room full of people, a lot of people in Santa Rosa County that are absolutely shocked that Jerry Cooey would stand up and say that he's okay with an additional tax, okay? There's nobody denying that the will of the people is to finally allow for a courthouse here. But here we're going to let the wheels fall off of this again. I've heard arguments about good property purchases in the past. For the record, this week is the 5-year anniversary of the purchase of the Pullen property, which we've done nothing with. That lesson lingers long in the minds of the residents of Santa Rosa County. I understand traffic issues, and Commissioner Lynchard, let me say, and really to all of you, I went to the courthouse in 1984 to get a marriage certificate because I was required by law. Unfortunately, I made one trip down there for a youthful indiscretion, and 3 other times I was invited as a character witness in a trial. So in 53 years, I've made 5 trips to the courthouse. I'm certain that other people use the courthouse more than I. But a little bit of extra time on the few amount of times that I go to the courthouse is not a problem with me. I can shoot right down Baghdad, right up the interstate. Of all this, like I said 2 weeks ago, of all the solutions out there, there is no fix for Highway 90. Avalon will be congested in 5 years. If you look at DOT studies, when a road gets to an F and then they get it back to an A, typically within 5 years it's back to a C at least because of the number of home sites that are on Avalon. However, there is a big push. I understand there's not funding there yet. I understand they haven't bought any right-of-ways. But there is a group of folks in earnest that are attempting to get a bypass around the city of Milton, which I believe that if the Board of County Commissioners said, hey, we're going to make a $30 million investment in East Milton, I think you'd see some speed up help by FDOT on alleviating that. My final thoughts is, There's 5 commissioners, and you all have personal reputations. I would hope that you wouldn't want to be part of a group of commissioners that over one piece of land is going to block this courthouse. Because I'm telling you right now, the people that I talk to, they're carrying pitchforks, and they have them on fire. And if there is property purchased over this courthouse, your sales tax is going to fail. And it will probably go down in history as the largest failure. I've spoken to a lot of people that think that it won't make 25%. Okay? I'm trying to give you guys a way out here. I really am. I'm standing here with an olive branch, trying to help you get a way out. I support what Commissioner Melvin has said this morning. Here's the olive branch. Go look those judges in the eye and say, I think we're going to have to move this thing over here. And they're going to get behind you. They want the courthouse. The employees want a new courthouse. All the facilities involved in the courthouse. I want to see it get done. Honestly, I'm tired of the argument. But each and every time, the wheels fall off over this property. And I'm gonna say it again. I haven't made a trip to the hardware store yet. But if this courthouse continues to stay on property that we buy, and it's the principle, it's not the dollars, gentlemen, I'll make my trip to the hardware store, and me and several of my friends over here in the front row will make it a point to stop this sales tax. I don't want to do that. I really don't. You got citizens that's bringing you olive branches. Reconsider your thoughts here. Thank you.
Loretta Aiken, 1828 Sundown Drive in Navarre, Florida. First, Commissioner Melvin, I want to tell you that I respect your stance. Number two, I live in Navarre and I come up here. I don't go to the courthouse. I come over here to the commissioners and other things, and I come up 87. They've widened it. It's quick. And when I have to go over to Avalon, I come up 87, get on I-10, and go over to Avalon. If the courthouse is in East Milton, I'm going to come up 87, and I'm almost there. So I think, and I've always said, and Bob Cole will tell you, we had free land offered to us, free, right there. And we could have been moving on with the courthouse instead of still talking about it. Number three, I have never seen y'all bring DOT here and discuss this issue. They went to Navarre when they were talking about widening the road and everything, and as fire commissioner, I spoke to them personally about the emitters for the traffic lights for the fire department, so if there was an emergency, we would be able to move forward quickly. 98 is a nightmare. They came in and they took care of this problem. I think if you present to DOT your future plans for the courthouse in East Milton, they're going to meet with you, draw out a plan, and maybe possibly give you a date that they're going to widen our road or make a change that will benefit everyone. And thank y'all for working on this.
Thank you, Commissioners, for letting me speak. If you'll see on your desk, I gave
Excuse me,
each
sir.
one. Yes, sir.
Name and address.
Oh, I apologize. Sam Mullins, 5922 Allentown Road. I apologize about that. Real quick, on this little packet I've got for each one of y'all, the front page is from the Greg Brown's office, and it's on the jail property. And if you flip over to the next page, you'll notice there's the 35 acres that was sold to Gold Ring. Still haven't been able to get what the actual price of the property, what it went for. I had asked about 10 days, 2 weeks ago to see if I could get a cost analysis on what the property originally was bought for, what we sold it for, and just a rough idea of the infrastructure that went in by the county on that property. Unfortunately, they have the offices haven't had time to get back to me with that. So before we go forward, number one, I think that needs to be addressed. Number two, as you see there, looking at the jail and the sheriff's department, right behind it, you've got the Department of Juvenile Justice. That's over 113 acres. They're using one small portion that's being leased from the county on the southeast corner of that property. Then if you look to the north of that, the next parcel says City of Milton. The reason that I've been told that originally was purchased, because used to, and I understand now the rules have been changed, but used to, your courthouse had to be at the county seat. So therefore, Milton being the county seat, that's why that property was originally purchased. So this has been in the long-term plans for a very long time. You look to the north of that, you got several hundred acres, again, county property. These properties are all contiguous, and you keep saying that there's no infrastructure out there in the cost. Well, you have fiber optic cable that you don't have at the Pace property. You don't have the drainage issues on this property that you will have with the Pace property. And like I said, you got several hundred acres here that if you do decide to build it elsewhere, that could be sold to defer this tax that you're wanting to put on the people. Last but not least, you talk about the traffic issues. In researching this, one of the biggest unincorporated areas in the state of Florida, we actually have two here in Santa Rosa County, Pace and Navarro. 10 years ago, we didn't even have a high school in Navarro. Now it's one of the largest in Santa Rosa County. That is one of the fastest growing areas in the state. I want to pick a bone with some of our county people here that keep talking about a rumor mill. I went to DOT. I spoke to DOT too, and was told that the 87 4-lane would be complete within 2 to 3 years. It was on the 2 to 3 year plan that includes the bridge, the 4-lane bridge across Yellow River. That's the plan. Will it go in at that time? It may not, but that's the plan. Again, I was told that the northern connector, which goes right by the property we're talking about right here, which would put your main north-south corridor, transit corridor, and your two main east-west corridors in the county, less than 1.5 miles from your courthouse. Lastly, you talked about the traffic issues on 90. When you get ready to put turn lanes or additional lanes in out here on Pea Ridge, that is all very high-dollar, expensive commercial property that the county will have to purchase for further right-of-ways to put those lanes in. If you do it in East Milton, that out there you have a lot more available property for right-of-ways. That'll be a lot cheaper. And you can check the tax records on what I'm saying. This is true. So the logistics make sense for East Milton, but that's not my last point. My last point is this. Before we build anywhere and start buying more property, we need to look at the cost effectiveness to the county taxpayers of putting the courthouse here in East Milton, which would include attaching the jail, which would add additional security, as well as cutting down on your operating costs of transportation, of debt. I know it's a small cost, but you're still looking at vehicle cost, fuel cost, maintenance cost, additional deputies, additional security facilities that would have to go in another site. Those are just things that should be considered and seem to be being pushed to the side. But the people are not, like Mr. Cooey said, they're not ready to start paying more taxes to start purchasing more and more land when we've got several hundred acres right here that have commercial sewer, commercial water, commercial power, AT&T DSL cable, as well as fiber optic cable on the property. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Debbie Gano. I'm 2143 Chatsworth Drive, Navarre, Florida. First, I'd like to say thank you, Commissioner Melvin, for voicing the concerns of the citizens and not thinking that you know better than the rest of us. I'm not a lifelong resident of Santa Rosa County. I'm retired military, recent resident here. But I noticed out here in the lobby, this building was built or dedicated in 1998. I'm sure that there was a need for a courthouse back in 1998. And I'm concerned with the lack of foresight then that this facility is not our current courthouse. It could have been built up, it could have been built out, and it had everything that we needed right here. But unfortunately, that was not seen, and hindsight is 2020. The purchase of any new additional land for the location of the courthouse removes yet again more land off the tax rolls and essentially raises my millage rate, and I won't stand for it. The county does not need to buy any more land, period. We need to use what we already have and take advantage of what already exists on that land. A 0.5 cent or a 1 cent increase in the sales tax is going to kill your referendum. I've talked to many people. They will not stand for yet another tax increase during a time of hard economic times. You've got to think outside the box and come up with a different way of funding this courthouse, or we're not going to have one. So you've got to consider what else is going on. And as far as any traffic considerations, I drive up from Navarre quite frequently. I use 87. If I'm coming over here, I'll weigh the difference between going up 87 to 90 and coming across through the construction area, or I'll come up through Baghdad, or I'll go down to Avalon. I look at the different routes considering the time of day. I look at the different routes considering the construction, and I will make a decision on what is going to be the most timely way for me to get from point A to point B. Right now, if I decided to drive from 90 and 87 to here, it takes me somewhere between 6 and 8 minutes. You're not talking 20 minutes. You're talking less traffic lights from the current courthouse out to East Milton than you would be from driving all the way through Milton and all the traffic lights and the congestion already on 90. If you want a new courthouse, you better start thinking about something other than what you're currently planning, because it's going to be dead in November, and we're going to be looking at another 10 years or longer before we get a new courthouse.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I totally agree with Mr. Melvin. This issue and the land on Highway 90 has been bulldozed right through every meeting. The decision has not been made or even influenced by the public. You have had no public meetings for public in the evening when they can come, when they don't have to work. So I agree, and I always have agreed with the East Milton location. There's a lot of facts that have been presented by Sam and other people that show that this would be a good location for the Judicial Center. So I ask you to reconsider. Like I said, the public has not been afforded the chance to come in the evenings and give you their impression of where their judicial center should be located. Thank you.
Tom Rogers, 5144 Goshawk Drive in Milton. I really understand, I'm new to the area, and one of those people that moved in, and I really love this area, and I love much of what goes on in this area, and I don't mean to be negative toward the commission. I know that they're working hard on this. However, when we talk about property, we talk about property that the county owns, and we talk about not being able to develop it because of all these things. 20 years, I've heard 20 years, 30 years. Maybe I'm uneducated in this, but why did we buy it in the first place? And the second thing is that, in my past life, I was a senior project coordinator for a very large corporation whose name you would know immediately and understand. I don't understand why a particular property was identified when there is so much concern in the community. Why it was initially identified before true negotiations had occurred. I would think that you'd look at all the properties, look at all the pluses, minuses, and then come up with a decision and see how you could negotiate this with the owners. And then, what we're looking at with the present property you're talking about, there's going to be a real financial benefit to the people who own the property near it and around it, or also the people that own the property. So that has to be taken into consideration and negotiate with them, something that they could give you back. And I think that all of these things, all of this doesn't make sense to the public, does not make sense to the general public, because I hear that. When the decision was made on the property, no one knew where it was. No, and, I mean, no one. Even people that come to these meetings had to figure out where this was. This is a communication problem, but bigger than that, I think that the biggest communication problem is going to be in the election, because people are not going to. It's very difficult to understand why you have property, why that property is not suitable because you purchased it in the first place. It should have been suitable property. And if it's not suitable for development, that's going to be a problem with people. And also, you're asking them to put their money forward in a tax. So I think that if you do use your property, at least that shows sincerity that to the public that you really want to cut the costs because you own the property. And so it's just not logical. And I don't think to all the people out there it makes sense. And I'm not demanding anything or arguing anything, but I do think, and I think most of the public thinks, and I think it's logical that you would be using the property that you've already purchased. If it's unfit property, then sell it. Use the money to fund this before you turn to the people and ask them to put their money up. Thank you.
Warren Mills, 5734 Janet Street, Milton. I wanted to talk first about the logistical perspective. You were speaking about traffic, and although those are great numbers you brought up, I think you discount the idea that there's not going to be increased burden in the Highway 90 area. And in fact, I think those numbers would reach more people because the base amount of traffic is already greater there. And in fact, it's backed up quite a bit moving through those intersections, particularly at Highway 90 in Avalon. Considering the potential spread of the county in the future, we're talking about 7,500 years, I've heard mentioned. The spread of the county is not going to be towards the west. In fact, we're running out of room to the west. So east seems like the more logical choice as far as looking towards the future in the long run. And at any time, it adds to an unnecessary layer of costs, whether it's 1%, 5%, 10%. The magnitude's not as important as the fact that it does add cost. You know, if we start talking about percentiles, I think we lose a lot of stuff. We lose a lot of the important, minute details. It does seem to add that kind of property as an egregious expenditure of money, considering like in the documents that Sam handed out, there's probably greater than $25 million worth of property sitting around that area out there that was, as Tom pointed out, it was purchased for some reason, a reason we don't seem to be acknowledging. And when we, I've heard terms of, it's time to act, it's time to stop thinking about it. That kind of language makes me very uncomfortable. We hear a lot of that stuff out of Washington, too. So you can understand a little bit of cynicism that comes from that. And I guess I think back to Calvin Coolidge, who said it's better to stop a bad bill than it is to pass a good one. So we need to protect ourselves, create a layer of protection for the citizenry. Lastly, it seems like we're getting into the position where the county is a property developer. We talk about doing the Highway 90 property, then taking after it's built up and selling that front parcel out, which I don't really think is the interest of county government to improve property to resell it to make money. Now, I understand that would defray costs as a taxpayer. However, I think we're getting into a line where you're competing in a private market at that point, and that's really not in the interest of government or in the interest of the citizens in the long run. Short run, it sounds good to retrieve a couple, $3 million. Long run, I think the competition factor, the crowding out the government takes place, I think that's a little bit troublesome. And also controlling who gets to build in front of the courthouse. I heard that comment made. I'm not sure. It makes me uncomfortable that government's going to pick and choose who gets to win or lose in that situation. Sally gets to buy, but John doesn't. That's really not in the purview of government, in my opinion, either. If you do want to try to push a different location, sell all the other properties first. If you want to buy a $1.2 million property, sell the other $25 million that you say is untenable, and then let's talk about it again. But until that point in time, I don't think that it's just not going to pass. I think it's going to be actively fought against, the tax bill. And so I think it's not just that it's not supported, it will be opposed heavily. And a little bit, I think a little bit more transparency in the property itself. It adjoins residential areas. It's not a very convenient location as far as adding in new traffic lights and any future growth to the facility. We're talking about growing the facility in the future. That land doesn't leave a tremendous amount of growth, especially if there's parking needs, anything like that. So thanks for your time, though. Appreciate it.
Ruth DuPont Esser, 4371 Maryland Court, Gulf Breeze, Florida. I'm not here to beat up the site so much as the cost. I think we need to have a new way of looking at things. I won't tell you that I'm crazy about the Highway 90 site because of the traffic problem. Highway 98 has a lot of traffic on it. Navarre and Gulf Breeze have a lot of people there. But also 90. Pace has grown unbelievably in the last years. And getting on Highway 90 in the evening and in the morning is really a dangerous thing at times. And that courthouse is going to have the highest traffic in the morning and the evenings. But I want to talk about a little different perspective of this. On the Highway 90 site, the bank wants approximately $2.5 million. We're looking at possibly buying half of that, 22 acres, for $1,400,000. Which for whatever reason is more than half, and yet we're getting half. The other half goes up about 3 times in value, on appraisal value. So I think we're missing a great negotiation in that we should be going to the bank and saying because the other piece goes up in value, we think we should be getting a much better deal than ours, possibly even bringing someone to the table that would purchase the piece for $2.5 million, leaving us the other with no money in. Then when we get done with that, since we want to put the courthouse towards the back of the land, any site that we do choose, we could do that with. And we could very easily, with a little surveying and a few pieces of pipe, create 8 commercial lots on the way to the courthouse. By doing that, we could pre-sell those lots for $250,000 apiece, creating our $2 million that we need in order to put in our infrastructure. Beyond that, we could look into some of the restore money. We could sell some of the properties we have, and then we could create a user fee for the rest of the costs of the courthouse, and thereby not go back into the pocketbooks of the people, but rather let the people that use the courthouse pay for it. I think if we become more business savvy and a little less tax savvy, then we might get all the things we need in this county without hurting people financially. Thank you.
My name is Hal Sherburne, 4878 Tealwood Drive in Pace, Florida. I'm not an eloquent speaker. My history is in quality control and safety. I deal in facts. This is sort of trying to put together what everybody's been talking about here. There's some terms that have become very popular lately. Transparency and accountability. I put together a paper in less than an hour, and it's something that I think would probably help the general public. These people have done some of your work already. It's putting a paper together on the properties, the pros and cons of each, what effect hurricanes have, what effect, oh, gee, are we going to have to build restaurants? Are we going to have somebody making money off of that? How about attorneys? They want to have their offices. I know they have plenty of them downtown. A paper put together, it could be put in the newspaper. It could be put as a package that you have to put in for. Or it could be just mailed out to the citizens and give them a choice. Because like so many people have said here, a lot of people are going, well, what's going on? We thought that was done and over with. Is it done and over with? Have you all made an agreement? Put it down on paper and why you made that agreement. I gave the lady a copy of this. It's just a suggestion. It's not a hard metrics or anything like that. But I think the best way to get a lot of this resolved, and it might give you all some way of making a decision, put it down. Put it down on paper and let everybody see what you got going. And then let's see what happens at voting.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am, come on.
My presentation was not intended to be about the courthouse.
Name and address, please, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Susan Broxton, 1537 Oak Drive, Gulf Breeze, Florida. I was raised at 86 High Point Drive, Gulf Breeze, Florida. We moved here in 1957, and I've spent a substantial amount of time in Santa Rosa County. I've also lived in Atlanta. Basically, I want to say that the county has lost faith with, I have lost faith with the county. And I think that's why you're not getting your courthouse. That the county has a system whereby they help the real estate folks steal from us, steal our land. And they have lost faith with a lot of people. And it's about time the county stop helping thieves steal from the residents. Now, I have been to court with regard to the land situation, and the judge wouldn't even listen to my case. They dismissed it without even hearing it. They wouldn't even look at the maps. I had, just like I have today, I had books to show. I have been twice to the FBI regarding the problems with surveyors coming out and pulling out stakes and moving the property and registering the property in the wrong place with the county officials. I've been to the tax assessor's office to try to get this thing straightened out. I have been up here to engineering, not you, Mr. Blaylock, but another old gentleman, around 2005, trying to get the county to put back the federal benchmarks so we could get the thing straightened out, and the federal benchmarks never went back in place. And what I'm saying is the county has not straightened out the problems that they have made with regard to our property, our location, our taxes, and just recently, I had more surveyors come out this year to try to steal approximately half acre of my land, it's like it's been again and again because you're wrong, 50 feet wrong on the back line, 50 feet. Now, if somebody came and took 50 feet of your backyard, how would you feel about it? And why can't we get this straightened out? One time, the county, I went out of state. I went to work in Alaska for 1 year. I signed it over to my brothers, and a neighbor subpoenaed my brother and my children to come in and try to move my property. Now, I came right back, put my fence up. I've had a fence locating my property where my deed says since 2005.
Ms. Broxton, may we ask you to hold those comments for later? We're talking about the courthouse.
Okay, understand. What I'm saying is over and over, the county, and I'm not the only one. There's lots of handicapped people. There's lots of elderly people that have been treated the same way in my area.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Ms. Broxton.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, I kind of held off on my comments till I've heard from everybody. And I'm a little confused. This gentleman here, said that we shouldn't invest in land to resell. We're not in the investment program, but yet he applauded when Miss Ruth said to buy a lot of it and sell it to get our money back. So I'm kind of confused as to where we're applauding for. Mr. Cooey, you're always very pertinent about, open sunshine law and look at the records and everything being on record, which of course we should do. I mean, we're held accountable for that. And I'm kind of dumbfounded because every time Bob Cole brought up the subject of East Milton, I never got support. I've asked for support. Loretta, I take that back. Loretta supported me on that. And after the meeting that I attended with the Pace Patriots, they said they'd come and support it, which they have. Okay? So, I mean, I, of course, would not say no, not East Milton, because for 11 years I've tried to get it put in East Milton, and this is the longest we've ever talked about East Milton as a location, so I appreciate that. Commissioner Melvin, when I tried to discuss it before, didn't support it. I appreciate you supporting it now. It's something that I felt like all along we needed to look at. My intent was never to take East Milton off the board, but to move the project forward, just like Commissioner Lynchard came away from the Avalon choice toward the Highway 90 choice. I came away from East Milton towards the Highway 90 choice. I'm not going to sit here today and say I won't vote for East Milton. So I appreciate that olive branch, Jerry. I mean, it's probably the first time I've gotten one from you, but I appreciate that. So, gaining faith. The lady talked about gaining faith. Sam, you are correct. The Yellow River Bridge is going through. But we're talking about Blackwater River on this connector. Yes, when you're saying that the bridge from Highway 87 north to Highway 87 south is going to be completed in 5 years, that's not true. Now the Yellow River Bridge is not the Blackwater Bridge. The Yellow River Bridge will be completed within 5 years. That's on a plan to complete it, along with the 4-laning all the way down to Holly. That's not the bridge over Yellow River, and that's where I wanted to clarify that. Okay, so in gaining faith, the lady said we've lost faith. We need to gain faith. We work for every one of you folks out there. We're listening to every one of you folks out there. And gentleman out there shaking his head no, but I've never not been a person to be available to the public and to talk to the public. Neither has any of these other commissioners. We're all available to you, and we realize that we work for you. I figured out a simple solution that'll gain the faith. And it's just by, instead of one question on the ballot, we put 2 questions on the ballot. Will you support a 1-cent sales tax to build a judicial center in East Milton? Yes or no? Will you support a sales tax to build a judicial center on Highway 90? Yes or no? If both of them are no, 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 we don't build it. If we get yes for East Milton, we build it there. If we get yes for Highway 90, we build it there. End of subject. We put it on the ballot. Simple as that. There you go. And I'll certainly be one to vote for East Milton because I always have. So let's make it simple. Majority vote. If 51 people say to build it in East Milton on property we own, we build it there. If 51 people say to build it on Highway 90, we build it there. If 51 people say, no, we're not building a courthouse, then we've done our job. We've put it on the ballot. You've made your selection. We're done. Period.
Carl Hudgens, 3412 Barkwood Drive in Pace. At this point, I think we've underestimated the importance of selecting the correct location for the courthouse and how easy it would be to just say, well, we just want it here. It doesn't work that way. In any kind of real estate deal, location is probably your most important, pivotal decision to make. I would support Mr. Melvin's proposal with some caveats, and I appreciate Mr. Melvin for making that. I'd like to see some public hearings. This process of the location is probably in my opinion, as important as the design of the courthouse. Maybe more important. So we need public hearings, we need them town hall style. We need public meetings that are advertised, and we need to meet with DOT. If we had the DOT representative in here today, we wouldn't have to be saying, well, they're not going to build a connector bridge from 87 North to 87, or they are, even though I've seen the plans and they are. But, you know, we've got people saying we'll never see it in our lifetime. Sam talked to somebody at the DOT, and I don't consider that a rumor mill activity when you actually go to the official and speak to them. So I think your rumor mill has been pretty productive in bringing some facts to your meetings. And by the way, I've got a map here with all of the locations in red dots and a couple of other locations like the Pullen property that may be considered. And it was real easy. I just went to the picked up a map at the library and went to the Greg Brown's website. If you go to Greg Brown's website, you can print off every parcel. There's the Pond Creek P Ridge parcel, 45 acres. There's the JDL property set, 19.2 acres. There's the Pullen property, 88 acres. We paid $3.08 million for already. There's a Byron property that was offered to us free for the county, just 2 miles east of where our current courthouse is. And here's the Santa Rosa property, 113 acres. It's off of Greg Brown's website. Now, I've come here and I haven't seen any of this kind of information presented here where we're making the decision. So that's what it should be. And the public should be invited at a time when they can come and participate in more than one meeting. So with those caveats, that we have more public meetings, we should actually do that. Actually, what we're doing here is public meetings, but they're a little bit crude. I'm told I have 3 to 5 minutes to speak, and if we had a town hall meeting, we would have time to intermingle with everyone here and actually have some interaction. Also, HOK said, well, when we pick out a design for the courthouse, we can have a town hall type meeting, and we can put all the presentations, images up here, and we can have red dots and green dots. And the public can come in and put a red dot where they don't like and a green dot where they do like. Why don't we do that with the most important decision of this process, which is the location? You put your 5 or 6 panels up here, and the public comes in, and we talk about it, and the public decides. That might be a good idea. We need better public input in this process so you can sell the tax down the road. The location will kill the tax. We've already know that. These publics are really not announced other than just on the normal regular meeting announcements. We need to get the word out more. No nighttime meetings, no images, a quick vote, and we locked in on a 2-mile radius of one intersection in this county right off the bat. Well, why did we do that? Only one of these locations that we're considering really are within 2 miles of that intersection. And there's about 6 potential locations here, and 3 of them are free. And none of those free ones were within 2 miles free. I'm saying one was offered to you already. I understand the argument. Land you own is not necessarily free if you can resell it. I understand that, but it's paid for. It's not something that the taxpayers have to shell out. If it's sitting out there and you've got 600 acres and it's paid for, 20 acres of that might not be such a big sacrifice. So that's close to free. On the drive routes, and the other issue was get the DOT in here and let's ask them about the bridge and the thing. I've already mentioned that. On the drive routes, I've got land in East Milton for a future home, and I live in Pace, so I drive that a lot. Now, I go to the courthouse once about every 5 years, like Mr. Cooey said. If we put it in P Ridge, I'm going to have to drive through all that traffic of all those people going in and out there every day. So it increases my traffic route there. Now, when I'm out in East Milton working on my land, right now, there's 3 routes for me to come home, and I use them at different times depending on the traffic. If it's Highway 90, I come Highway 90, hit Berry Hill Road, and go to Pace. I know the time of day. If it's not, and I'm tired, I've been working, riding my bush hog all day, I hit 87, I hit I-10, I run I-10 all the way to Scenic Highway down to Pace, and I go all the way to Scenic Highway, come all the way down to Pace, and it takes me about the same amount of time as if I go Highway 87 in Berry Hill if traffic's tight. I know that route. There's another route. I get on I-10, I go across the bridge heading west, I get off on the first exit there, and I go down and I cut through the back roads, which go parallel to the interstate north of Thing. So there's 3 routes for me to get from Pace to I-10 and 87, which is close to where my land is. To me, that's the ideal location. People coming from Pensacola to our courthouse, they just hit the interstate and run right out there. They're right there. So for that reason, I'd like you to, in this town hall situation that I hope would develop, I'd like that 88 acres that we bought from Pullum considered also. It's, to me, that and East Milton is a toss-up. To me, the 3 favored out of all the ones we considered are all the ones, either the Byron property, the Pullum property we already bought, or the property that's already paid for in East Milton, and all of those will not add to the cost of the courthouse. Your site improvements are going to cost the same wherever you go. In fact, the one on Highway 90 is heavily wooded. It's going to cost a pretty penny just to clear that land when you go to clearing 22 acres. Another deal is, we have been talking about forever, we don't need a Taj Mahal. Now we're deciding we want to build it in the highest priced area, and we want to go up 2 stories, and we want everything under one roof, and we want to spend $40 million. If we think about it, we might be able to build it for half of that if we really get down to a reasonable building, which is expandable out in the East Milton area. Maybe keep the old courthouse on the first floor for family law and some to maintain that historic presence of that courthouse, and just build something more modest and reasonable, but will really suit the needs of the Judicial Center in East Milton. So all of these things need to be considered, but the main thing is we need more public input on this location situation. But I would support Mr. Melvin's proposal that we actually revisit that and have public input on it. And so I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Carl. We'll take one more comment, then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and we will vote on this issue, and then we're going to press on.
Okay, real quick, and I just wanted to add a couple of anecdotal things so that people will understand. Again, my name's Sam Mullins, 5922 Allentown Road. The 87 corridor that everybody keeps talking about, the commissioners made the comment in the paper the other day whenever they were talking about the property in Pea Ridge that we needed to plan forward, for the next 50 to 100 years for a courthouse, minimum. Well, if 87 corridor is going in 5 to 10 or even 15 years, and if we're seeing that that's part of the county is the fastest growing, one of the top 3 fastest growing areas in the state, statistically, according to the state statistics, is one of the largest unincorporated areas of growth in the state of Florida, then to me, again, it makes more sense out there. But I keep hearing this about the 87, and I agree. I wanted to say I concur with what Carl says. We need to get not only DOT in here, but we need to get DEP in here to look at the drainage situation on the Pea Ridge property being backed up to Pond Creek watershed right there. I still have not been able to find out exactly how much acreage the holding pond is going to take up the limited acreage we have there. And I mean, that's going to be an issue for future expansion of the Pea Ridge property. And going back to the north connector of 87, I, again, live in Allentown, and they've been surveying for the last 9 months out there. Yesterday, on my way to Andalusia to go on an oil rig, I'm working up in Andalusia, Alabama, I went through Fidelis, and I saw where they were doing several roadbed borings on the side of 87. The long-term plan, everybody keeps saying, well, it's just rumor, it's just rumor. It's not. They're surveying, they're doing roadbed testing. I saw them 6 months ago drilling right there at the little creek north of Whiting Field on 87, doing, again, roadbed borings testing so that they can figure out just, how to do the roadbeds. And not only are they doing that, but I'm seeing utility trucks starting to clear for the sides of the road and marking and moving utilities, which included some AT&T trucks the other day. So this is something that is coming in the future, and I don't think it's going to be 15 or 20 years. I think, like DOT has told me when I asked them out, point blank, they said it was on the 5 to 10 year plan. So if it's on the 5 to 10 year plan for the northern section, and the southern section of it, it's on a 3 to 5 year plan, across Yellow River, well then, let's look. I'm not saying that you have to lock in right at this moment to the jail site, but we own property out there, and that's where the growth's going. I mean, to me, it makes the best sense. But regardless of what we do, we don't need to lock ourselves into an area that's away from where the growth, long-term growth of the county is going to be, and that's, we already see that it's landlocked here in Pace. We had the discussion about the Avalon property that said that one of the issues was that it was going to be right in the middle of a housing area. Well, the property here in Pea Ridge, you've got houses to the east, houses to the west, and they're talking about putting in possibly another subdivision to the property of the north of that property. So you're going to have houses there. So to me, that's a moot point on that one. So I just, again, we keep hearing this idea about rumors. It's not rumors. I mean, we're seeing people, surveying and doing, and I want to applaud both you, Commissioner Melvin, and you, Bob, for bringing up the idea of revisiting the East Milton site. But I want to thank you for also offering to maybe look at putting this on the ballot so that the people can decide. I think both of those are admirable things, and I think that's what we need to do here in Santa Rosa County so that the people can have more of a say in their governance. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salter.
Sam, all the activity that you notice on Highway 87 North is my district. I get correspondence all the time from DOT about what they're doing. And you and I have had this conversation before about the activity that you're talking about, any boring, any looking at potential right-of-way. That's for potential four-laning of Highway 87 from Whiting Field north. Here's a memo from our county transportation planner. The Santa Rosa 87 connector project was just submitted to Federal Highway with 2 alternatives for review. Right-of-way and construction funding are not currently programmed. So any activity you see is we're looking at trying to figure out a way, and we work with the federal government. I've been working with the military on trying to justify 87 four-laning north of Whiting Field as a military project as well. So it has nothing to do with that potential connector. It's about trying to get 87 north four-laned. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break. Please be back in place no later than 10 minutes till. No, ma'am, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in session here at 10 minutes till.
I wanted to make a comment. I did not know anybody had any property in East Milton that could bid maybe some property straight out there. I'm just kidding. You said you had property until I didn't know that. No, but I was.
Would you please make your way back to your seats? If someone would close the main door over there, please. Thank you. Be sure your phones are still in vibrate. If you've used the break to make calls or whatever and turn the volume up, please be sure and turn them back down.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Salter.
If I may, it was brought to my attention at break, one of the things that no one's talked about out in the East Milton Road, City of Milton, we deeded them 20 acres a couple of years ago to build a new sewer plant out there. So you're going to have a sewer plant right there at the end of that East Milton Road as well. Just beware of that.
Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, we've heard from the people that we represent, and at this time I'm making a motion that we apply this to the ballot. As I stated earlier, that we make an offer to the people, basically on the ballot, that would you support a 1-cent referendum for positioning this on Highway 90? Or would you, the other option would be to support a 1-cent referendum to place it in East Milton. I know we've talked about several locations in East Milton. This board has settled on the Highway 90 location to be one of our first choices. My suggestion would be that we build it on property that we own just north of the jail. As was stated, eventually this road's going to go through. Sam, I didn't mean any harm by calling it rumor mill, because there was, and that's how it starts, convoluting it that the Yellow River Bridge is going to be built, and then accepting that as that's the Blackwater River is where I don't want to go with rumors, because the Blackwater River, I truly feel, and I'll be glad to go out to DOT with you, that it'll be quite a while before that bridge, the money's there for that bridge. But it is in the plan. There's no doubt that it is in the plan. That would be my suggestion, that we offer that to the citizens in both, on 2 questions on the ballot. I am open, however, to review other properties in East Milton, but staff could move forward with some language, getting some language ready for that. Supervisor of elections will know that. And, I just feel like that one piece of property would be best. So,
Not right now. Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think when we started this, the goal was to get a new judicial facility. I think the site is secondary. I'll support putting the question to the ballot. I think the most important consideration is we need to get people behind a new judicial center, regardless of where it is. And I think to that end, if Commissioner Cole will accept an amendment, I would like to see, the first question, and then we'll work out the language between now and August when it goes on, when the deadline is for the November ballot. But first question would be, do you support an additional 1% sales tax to fund the construction of a new judicial facility? And then the second question would be, do you support the judicial facility in the Highway 90 location or the East Milton location? And I would support that as we move forward. I think, again, the primary goal for all of us is to fix the glaring problem that we have, and that is the current state of our courthouse. We need a new judicial facility. So let's all get on the same page. Let's put the question to the people on the ballot. You can decide where it goes. Again, that's secondary. Most important consideration is the fact that we can build a consensus, build public support for a new judicial facility.
And I agree with that, and I can support that with one caveat. I'll just remind the board that we are already obligated by a resolution we took earlier to provide, I made the resolution, so I remember very clearly, that we tell the public what it's going to cost in dollars and how long it's, what it's going to cost what a penny for 40 million, 30 million, whatever it takes, and an obligation to sunset that penny when that debt is retired.
Absolutely, none of that would change, and I think this would allow HOK to go ahead. We're back to talking about the 156,000 square feet for the judicial facility, not any extra buildings down there. They can configure it so that they can site that building on either property that is ultimately chosen. So we'll have the good construction estimates when we're ready to move forward.
Well, if you'll make that in the form of a motion, we'll proceed on with other business.
Mr. Chairman, then, as Commissioner Lynch had indicated, the language, however it would set best with the citizens, whether it be, will you support the 1 cent sales tax, yes or no, which location. I just want to make sure the language is very simple and plain for our citizens, not meaning that offensively, but so it's not convoluted. Whether that works better than the language that I said, certainly I'll support it either way, because Commissioner Lynchard said it very well. The issue is getting our citizens, Sam, Jerry, everybody, behind this thing, and let's get this problem settled once and for all so we can move forward in Santa Rosa County with a new judicial facility. However the language works out best, I make the motion that staff, Ms. Jones, review that, come back to this board with perhaps a couple different ways that we can language it, and in the very next meeting, we move forward with that language to make sure it sounds the way we mean it to sound, the way the citizens want it to sound.
I just want to caution that I think we create confusion if we separate the dollar price and the site. I think we need to associate the dollar price with each site. Otherwise, we're going to confuse the issue. So site A is $50 and site B is $175. Whatever it is, I think we need to associate the price so that we can understand what we're voting on.
And we'll just have to come back to you with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right. Well,
so that's just my motion to indicate to staff that this is the will of the board, this is the will of the people, that we come up with that language, and I do so without objection, that we hear this again
y'all have
we haven't made the...
You have to pass an ordinance actually establishing the referendum and the referendum questions. Right. So that's going to come back to you, and there'll be public hearings on that in your normal ordinance.
And so to dispose of this matter then, and I need all the attorneys here to help to dispose of this matter, we need to instruct the staff to prepare the ordinance to put this on the ballot, to identify the two sites in competition, and site A with its dollar value and its sunset date, and site B with its dollar value and its sunset date, and include each one would be a penny either way. And I think that'll be clear enough for the public to follow. And if you guys will take that as direction from the board, we will move on if that's the will of the board. Does anybody opposed to that?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm all in favor of that. I think, again, we're going to differ on opinions on where it should be.
Sure.
But that's the argument that we should have. Location, that's the discussion that should take place out there. I think everybody recognizes and acknowledges that we do need a new judicial facility. So let's shift the focus of the discussion and the argument to the location.
To the courthouse, because if the staff would get that ready for us for the next set of meetings, that would be wonderful.
I think the ordinance question, the ballots language, that's going to be a while off. That's not due until August if we're going to put it on the November ballot, and we'll need the financial figures for that anyway.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But I think this will let everyone know our position, that we're going to put the question for the ballot, or we're going to put the question of location on the ballot.
This is March. Let's give them 30 days, and we'll roll it if we have to. But let's say, how much time do you anticipate needing?
I'm sorry.
Obviously, we don't need much time to think up an ordinance and get you some wording for the consideration. You can do that in 2 weeks. I think, again, to determine what the costs are and for actually have the HOK give us responsible cost figures, so like you said, they can be contrasted and an effective decision be made. I mean, that's what we're going to need to do is contact. You need to confirm, if you will, the 156 the size of the courthouse, the size of the judicial facility, and then we'll need to work with HOK on what we need to do to get you the two comparisons. Okay, I'm sorry, excuse me, I forgot about that. That was some time ago. You just need to direct us to expand HOK's scope to be sure that we incorporate the East Milton site or sites. There are several out there when you think about them.
We're talking about that one site that we were briefed on earlier that we discussed that fell out. That one's coming back onto the table. The one out north of, there. All right, if you guys would prepare that, staff prepare that, we'll be very appreciative, and we will move on to other business. We could spend all day on this, so we're going to close this out.
Mr. Chairman, did you all do that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I do, and I do so without objection.
And that's to instruct staff to work with HOK on expanding its scope of work, and for staff to begin looking at ballot language to be brought to you at a future date.
Right, and we'll take these last two comments, then we're going to have to close and move on to other business.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. Thank you very much for listening to the public today and finding a solution. I just had a quick question. You said you're going to put on the ballot, do you approve a 1-cent sale tax for a new judicial center? And that's going to be one question? No? Okay. Because what I was thinking was you have committed to Coldwell Bankers by giving them $10,000 that if the citizens approve a 1-cent sales tax, you are obligated to buy their property. So that's kind of a hiccup.
No, ma'am. We've not approved a contract with Coldwell Banker yet. Now,
Okay.
that because staff has not been instructed not to proceed with that, that is a contract that will come back, I assume, in 2 weeks. Now, it will have proper contingencies in it, so that if it's the will of the board not to proceed with that site, we may withdraw from the contract and receive our earnest money back.
Okay. Thank you.
Yvonne Harper, 7375 Olympia Street. My question piggybacks off of hers is what happens in November if the residents or citizens decide they want to go with East Milton and that property is no longer available? What happens? Or people decide they want to go with the 90, but the property owners at 90 have decided that they're just going to sell to someone else because between now and November, so a buyer becomes available and they say, we would like to sell this land and we're not sure how this is going to play out in November. What happens then if the residents approve the central location?
Ms. Jones?
I anticipate we will go ahead and sign a contract so that the property is certainly available to us until the end of the year by contract, but it will have contingencies in it so that we may withdraw from it. If the referendum doesn't pass, we may withdraw without any default on our part.
So you're going to ask them to hold it essentially for Santa Rosa County's purchase until December?
That's exactly right, and that's already in the draft contract that's circulated. The board has not approved it, but I know several folks have seen it, and that's already included.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
And that's what the board
Mr. Chairman,
directed us to do.
and the rest of the board, I see Yvonne's point. If the contract is based on whether or not the referendum passes, not where we build, we could be out $10,000. And I just, and that's why I wanted to see more language. So county attorney will take care of that.
All right. The time is well past 9:30, and we have a public hearing. The public hearing is the vacation of the rear 20 feet setback as depicted in plat of Lot 6, Block A, Homeport subdivision as requested by Ronald P. Moore and Shane Edwards. And Mr. Moore was present earlier, and there he is still. Mr. Moore, please come forward. And give us your name and address for the record, even though we know who you are. Hit the speak button. There you go.
Ronald Moore, 1410 Homeport Drive, Navarre Beach, Florida. This is my address here. My other address is 215 Trimble Chase Court, Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm constructing a new home. It's going to be completed in about a month. Neither part of my home or the rear deck encroaches this 20-foot easement the initial developer put in the 80s. What I wanted to do is kind of infringe on that territory, a maximum up to 4 feet for the rear stairwell that leads off the deck of the house. I have a photograph of the house, but not a portion of the deck or the home is over that easement. That easement, as I understand, was put in 25 years ago for the construction of the seawalls in that community. But every homeowner has a seawall, so there's none to be constructed in the future. And if they need to get by, then obviously I could tear the stairwell off, I guess, if I had to. But that's the only thing that I'm wanting to do is infringe on that territory for a stairwell and not for any other portion of the house.
Any homeowner association input or opposition to this?
No, there was no input. There was no opposition. And it's vacating a portion of a plat.
Okay.
And notice was given to we did the regular note. We noticed everybody.
Okay. Is there anybody here present opposed to the vacation of this rear 20 feet of this lot? Seeing none, hearing none, I move approval by objection. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the county attorney, would it be prudent to put a caveat in there that it could be the stairwell, but in the future couldn't build occupiable space in there? I mean, are we leaving ourselves open by passing it without that caveat?
Yes, sir. I looked at the photographs. I'm not sure in practicality much else could be constructed, but the way the plat vacation process works is this platted setback on this lot would essentially go away. So it does eliminate it. Because his house is already substantially constructed, this isn't some perspective thing. He's already got most of it there. I think we can see a little better what exactly he wants to do, but it does leave you open.
Well, would we harm his request in any way by putting that caveat in, if it's just for a stairwell?
There's not really a way to do that, Commissioner. Either we vacate the setback line or we don't. This isn't like a conditional use or a variance or something like that we often see. This is, do we change the plat or don't we? Without any real middle ground there.
So if we vacate it, okay, it's vacated, and tomorrow he decides, well, I want to build a little utility closet on the back too, or add on to my back porch or something, it can be done.
If his homeowners association allows it. There's homeowners association involved here, and they're not opposing anything. So. Okay, all right. I just didn't want to open a can of worms here. Okay, that's all right. All right, so seeing none, hearing none, I move approval of the objection. Hearing none, it passes. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're back to the administrative committee. Item number 2 is recommend consent to change in ownership of Lifeguard Ambulance Service of Florida, LLC, to Lifeguard Ambulance Service, LLC, as required by the Agreement for Ambulance and Emergency Medical Services. We staffed this pretty heavily Monday, and everybody, it's all in the back of the book. Does anybody have any questions or additional inputs before we dispose of this? I move approval by objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 3 is recommend a contract with the University of West Florida in the amount of $7,500 for survey of residents in the 32566 zip code regarding proposed community center funded by the District 4 Recreation Funds. And this will be a live person-to-person, not a taped. And do you have a comment on that?
Rob Williamson, 7018 Summit Drive in Navarre. The last time we visited the $7,500 expenditure for the survey related to the community center, there was several citizens and members of this board and myself that expressed some concerns with what the survey questions would result in. And I was very encouraged when you had a committee established because I was looking forward to seeing public meetings being held and the opportunity for the Navarre community to have some input on whether or not they want a community center, what type of amenities they would want if they had one, what the cost would be, where we would possibly put this community center. A lot of the same questions that we've been talking about this morning on the courthouse. This is a expenditure that far exceeds a 5-question survey, in my opinion. And I just don't know that we have the money to spend and waste on $7,500 for the 5 questions that we have laid out. In past, community centers have been funded totally with rec funds from the respective commissioners. And I'm wondering, will this project be funded by rec funds? And if it is, that the Navarre residents are informed of what that would mean. That basically you're going to look at encumbering all future rec funds for more than a decade if we were to fund this as we've funded other community centers. So, if we ask an open-ended question, would you like a community center? I would imagine overwhelmingly you're going to have folks say, sure. The same as if you ask folks, would you like a new courthouse? Or would you like a new car? They're going to say, yeah, sure, that'd be great. But I don't know that we're going to have an informed group of citizens being able to make an informed judgment on a survey with open-ended questions. How would you like it to be funded? That was another question that was provided in the survey. So I just don't know what the desired outcome is of the survey, and if the survey questions get us closer to that desired outcome. The real heartburn I have with it just comes down to the money. It seems like we have spent more money on surveys or studies that don't get us any closer to our desired income or tell us any information that we didn't already know. And whether it's money for an amphitheater project that doesn't have community support, or whether it's information or money on a traffic survey to tell us what we already know about traffic on Navarre Beach, or whether it's property for expanded parking area for a boat ramp in Holly that nobody wants, or now $7,500 for a survey that I just don't see that's going to get us any closer to where we need to be. The process we've used in the past has been town hall centers or town hall meetings and well-advertised, publicly advertised meetings where the folks of that community could have input and find out what type of community center, or in this case what I've heard is a community/recreation center, what would you want to have? And then that could lead us down the road to coming back and saying, this is how much it's going to cost, and this is what the community desires. To spend $7,500 to basically get twice as many respondents as you did the last time when we did a survey that I believe was conducted just by the county, I just don't know that it's the best use of tax dollars. And I would recommend that this board continue to recommend pursuing the committee that's been formed, allow the committee to do their work. I think they probably have 8 or 9 members, maybe more, and allow that committee to do the work that would save us a lot of money.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Yvonne Harper, 7375 Olympia Street. I appreciate Mr. Williamson's questions, and those are questions that we have answered. A committee was formed. I sent an email to at least 85 individuals who had sent emails to Joy Sabuco about wanting to be interested. In January, when we held our first meeting, I think in addition to the 12 committee members, there were maybe 3 or 4 other citizens that showed up along with Mr. Melvin. We held another meeting in February and published that, put it on Facebook, sent emails out, and we had 1 citizen that came. With regards to the question, and I apologize for not making this more clear on Tuesday, the committee's recommendation was to have this survey with the understanding that the Haas Center would work with us to develop the areas of consideration for the questions. So these 5 questions would not be the questions that would be asked. And I spoke with Matt Schwab on Monday afternoon, and he said that they would be willing to meet with us if this is approved at our next meeting, March 24th, and work with the committee to develop the questions that could provide these answers. Our concern was to spend months developing a site location, funding options, what it would involve, only to come back and have the community say, no, this is not what we want. And the committee's understanding or feeling was when we voted on this in February was that this would answer those questions on really, is this what the community wants? Now, if you don't approve this, another option would be to do another online survey and work with Joyce Abuco to develop questions and maybe have the survey online longer so that it gives people more time to respond. Because there were 222 respondents, and I think that's off by about 120, give or take, because we really need at least 370 to really be within those margin of errors that were statistically valid. So that is an option in order to save the $7,500. I do appreciate the concern that it does seem like $7,500 is a lot. But what people need to understand is if this goes forward, it's not going from the survey to building. There are months of planning in between to develop the idea and to work with the residents who want to provide input, because it is something that we've always been open to with the citizens coming and providing input. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be happening yet. I do hope that that changes. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them. No? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record.
Excuse me. Loretta Aiken, 1828 Sundown Drive, Navarre, Florida. I am against spending $7,500 for a survey, and I said that at the meeting. The Haas Center doesn't represent me or my community, in my opinion. I think we've got to get word to our people, and we're not doing very well at that because I've joined 2 new organizations recently. I didn't even know Inc. Navarre was meeting and having meetings every 2 weeks. We need to use these other organizations to help us get the word out to our people, because this is their community center, and we need to have in-depth input from them. $7,500 can go towards building a community center. So maybe this committee can get a game plan for getting the word out. And it is difficult in this day and age, for some reason, to get people to know. So, and I do appreciate your patience on that, but I wouldn't waste my money right now. And to me, that's a waste. I have not heard it on WEBY radio or WCOA radio. And I'm wondering, I haven't seen any signs down Highway 98. That's the cheapest way to get word out. Everybody travels 98 and 87. Put some little signs out and say, have you completed the survey, or whatever that you think will get their attention. But let's look for a different way. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Andrea McDermott, 8093 Sleepy Bay Boulevard, Navarre. I have concerns. I do want a community center. A community center is something that I use on a regular basis just for my work. I think that we need something for big events that is affordable to our citizens. Some of the venues that are available now are expensive. My concern is $7,500 for 500 surveys. Seems just extremely expensive to me. I know that several months ago, this same committee came before you with $7,500 for 500 surveys.
Let me correct something here. When you're doing statistical sampling, they have to sample to whatever you're paying for, 3%, plus or minus 3%. Mm-hmm. That means that out of 10 tries, 7 times will be the correct information, and 3 times would not be the correct information. That's what that does. And when they talk about those are not 500 calls, those are respondents. So it depends on how big a sample they determine is necessary to poll 32566. And off the top of my head, I think it's 30,000 plus. I don't remember the exact number, but in order to sample 30,000 people, you're going to have to make probably on the order of a couple thousand calls to get a statistically valid sample, And as any of you who ever had statistics know, in a large sample, 400 is the minimum acceptable statistical. So it's a little bit different than that. But go
this
ahead.
is
Go
the
ahead.
same thing that was presented before you a couple months ago here in this room. It hasn't changed, it hasn't evolved, it hasn't had any progress. So that's my concern. You have this committee that's been formed, and in these couple months, they haven't even been able to evolve this proposal to you. So that is one concern. Another concern is, I know that the Haas Center is a service by University of West Florida that's been used many times by the county and different agencies. I think that the people who are involved should be sure that if they're in any way tied with the University of West Florida, they should make that public, because that's an ethical concern.
Yeah, please.
Yvonne Harper, 7375 Olympia Street. To the issue of UWF involvement, I am not aware of anyone's involvement with UWF. I am an adjunct at Pensacola State College, but I do not now, nor have I ever worked at University of West Florida or the Haas Center, nor do I know that anybody that is on the committee has worked with the Haas Center or works at the Haas Center. With regards to the committee was formed after the request went before the board in January and was denied. The first meeting, again, the emails were sent. We posted it on Facebook. We tried to get it out as much as we knew how, and very few citizens showed up other than the 12 committee members. We pulled information and looked at what was available within the 32566 zip code. We also looked at the Better Santa Rosa Plan and what the county's recommendations were from 2002 and the progress that has been made or not been made with those recommendations. And at the last meeting, it was determined by the committee to come back to determine if this is what the residents want. Again, I cannot stress this enough. This would only be approved. I don't have contractual authority to, make a contract with the Haas Center. So on Tuesday or Monday, I failed to be clear that these questions that are on this would not be the questions that would be asked. Matt Schwab would have to come to the committee to work with us to get those questions framed. And then if you want, the questions can then be presented back to the commissioners. Again, if it's not something you want to do, we can, opt for the online survey to save that money. So it's not the only option, but it was one that we felt thought would lead to a statistically valid response. Thank you.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yvonne, just a moment, please. Did I hear you say earlier that the meeting of this committee was advertised properly?
Yes, I had the emails from everybody that attended the December meeting, where Mr. Melvin was there and Joy Sabuco was there to talk about the results of the online survey, and there must have been, about 30 people there. And then Joy Sabuco had forwarded me emails from the individuals through the survey who had wanted information. So there were at least 85 emails that I sent out. And then, I also said, please tell, just like the ripple effect, please tell your friends. We created a Facebook account. We have posted that. I know Ashley Strabala, one of the members, has posted it on her page. I posted it on my page, the Concerned Citizens. So it has been advertised. We don't have any money. It's a volunteer group, so I can't call the Navarre Press and say, hey, or Santa Rosa Press Gazette or the P&J. So there's no funds to advertise in the paper, but we have put it out as much as possible, and the response or those who have attended has been limited.
Okay. Then, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
I see the attorney is kind of...
I don't mean to interrupt, but I did want to mention that this is not a committee established by this board. This is a volunteer group. Yes. This is a citizen initiative.
Okay. It's something that they're doing at my request, and it's not an action of this entire board.
That's where I need clarification, Mr. Chairman. I always understood if a commissioner requests a committee form and they do form, that becomes a sunshine item that they should have had to post this meeting in the press.
If the board were to create a committee, that is certainly, your understanding is exactly right. This is a citizen group that has gotten together, has called its own meeting, organized. I think a commissioner has attended. I believe Commissioner Melvin has attended. But this is not a committee established by this board.
Okay, well,
But we do, like, we keep minutes and all that's available to the public. Our meetings are not closed. I mean, anybody who wants to come can come. So it is not as if we are trying to keep this a secret. And if someone, you know, wants to provide some free advertising, we would be more than happy to have it to get that word out.
I'm just wanting to make sure we didn't overstep where we should have beforehand, and we haven't, so that's good. Mr. Chairman, I like the idea of going back and using the citizen group that's formed here, not spending the $7,500. I mean, we could even reach out in an issue like this to to churches, and ask churches to get people involved in responding to this. So I really think we ought to vent it through our citizens again.
I don't have any problem with that either. Our volunteer group is working extremely hard, and they're trying to get their arms around the opinion of 30,000 people, and it needs to be pointed out, at the risk of verbalizing the obvious, that 3 of the people here are all in contention for my upcoming empty seat. And so there's a bit of posturing here as well, and one-upmanship. We're trying to get the will of the people, want to know what the community wants. That volunteer group is working very hard to do that. I didn't include you in that. You know, don't work, unless you know something I don't know. It would be more convenient to do it that way, but we can certainly proceed the way they're doing. They're working very hard, and they're putting an awful lot of effort into it, and I, for one, applaud you for your efforts, and thank you very much for it. Let's go ahead and call the issue. I'll move it without objection. We're fixing to get it. Anyway, go ahead.
If it is the will of the board to proceed with this expenditure, the contract that you all have before you is substantially correct, but the 5 questions are laid out as a term of that contract. So if you were to approve this, generally speaking, I would suggest you do so with the caveat that these be the 5 questions at a minimum, or that the 5 questions be expanded upon, because if you're comfortable with the expenditure and with the general terms of the contract, I don't think that we necessarily need to come back to you all with the expanded questions unless you want that.
I'm fine with that.
And then I'm gonna object, because it's kind of like Nancy Pelosi asking for us to approve Obamacare without reading it first. I want to see the questions that I'm going to approve the expenditure for.
That's fine. Then I'll call the question, and we can move on to other issues then, because there's no sense in wasting the public's time. I move approval without objection. No, you need to.
I object, sir.
All right. So it's been moved and objected. We'll call for a vote, and let's just do a show of hands so that the.
Is the motion to approve the contract?
I'm sorry?
Is the motion to approve the contract?
The motion is to approve the contract with a caveat that the Haas Center be brought in to assist with the wording of the contract, so that we're not bound to those words.
The wording of the questions?
Yeah, the wording of the questions. And I move that without objection. I have objection, so all who are...
You may need a second, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You may need a second.
I still do.
Second your motion?
Oh, okay. It dies for lack of a second. Next item on the agenda is, that's fine. Well, she was going to speak to the issue that just died. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. That issue is not even going to be discussed. It's over. Well, we'll get to the public forum. Ma'am, we'll get to the public. Ma'am, we'll get to the public forum here shortly, and we'll be happy to entertain that question at the public forum. Thank you. Item number 4 is recommend use agreement and rate structure for June 8th Arena, as recommended by Santa Rosa County Fair Association Incorporated. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed this and agree with it. There was one caveat that I wanted in here. There was a dump trash per event. I want to include that in the $300 per day. and just basically line through the $50 per event. That would be part of your $300 per day cost. Other than that, everybody's real happy with this, and move it forward without objection, with that one change.
Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, you want to include the trash removal in the per day?
Correct. It's
So the per day cost you wouldn't incur any additional cost for trash?
Correct.
Is that on both the for-profit and non-profit? And what is the cost to pull a dumpster out there? I see the $50 rate, but I know when I run my dumpster an extra cycle, it's like $85 or $100. So, all I'm saying is we don't want to put ourselves in a box where for $100 per day somebody can rent it, get a dumpster pulled, and the Fair Association's losing money on it.
okay. It would only pertain to the for-profit, the $300 per day caveat, so it would remain on the $100 per day cost.
Okay.
All right.
Did you get that?
Okay. The $300 per day cost for a vendor on a for-profit, the first line, would remain at $300 per day. However, that would include the trash dump. The indoor event arena at $100 per day for a nonprofit would have to have the trash dump added to that cost. So that line would remain only for the nonprofit. Any other questions?
Easy way to do that may just make it 300 and 150, and then you're through with it, and don't fool with the trash dump. Or just
If that language is easy, if that language is easier, then, well, no, because it's per event on the trash dump, not per day, so that would increase their cost. So if we could just leave it that way, that the would be included, trash dump is included in the for-profit. It is addition as stated.
We'll just do it that way.
Yeah, because I don't want it. That would increase them $50 for the weekend, for the nonprofit. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? And sir, I move that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes. Item number 5 is recommended proposal from Sam Marshall Architects for architectural services for re-roofing of the Gulf Breeze Library. Data's in your backup. I move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 6 is recommend promotional tourism grant agreement in the amount of $491,000 for Tourist Development Council. It's funded by the Deepwater Horizon Claims Center. I move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 7 is recommend amendment to the contract with Kenneth Horn and Associates Incorporated in the amount of $14,858.31 for a portion of additional construction, administration, and inspection services associated with the Baghdad CDBG wastewater extension project. I move approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 8 is recommend Rebuild Northwest Florida Incorporated to submit an application for Florida Division of Emergency Management Tier 3 Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP, funding for the projects in Santa Rosa County. And that data is in your backup. Unless there are questions, I move approval without objection. Yes, sir.
Jerry Cooey, 6049 Arnie's Way. I rise in opposition for any relationship regarding Santa Rosa County, the good name of Santa Rosa County, associated with Rebuild Northwest Florida. I have raised this opposition over the last 5 to 6 years. I don't know whom of you might have taken me up on my opposition. I would suggest to you that their books need to be audited. This is the good name of Santa Rosa County that's being used here, gentlemen. This is, I understand we want to reach out and get every single dollar we can. I get that. But this is our reputation. Okay? The last check of Rebuild Northwest Florida, their management salary fees exceeded $1 million a year. Their overhead is through the roof. Just last year, they were drawn into a courtroom with an argument over their hiring practices. If you will take the time to verify that, you will find out that they did not follow proper bidding applications, and they picked who they wanted to. They did not do RFPs to see who was going to get the work. The committee themselves went and picked who they want. That is adamantly opposed to any way that an entity that is receiving tax dollars should operate. Okay? Additionally, their claim that the spray insulation that they put on the inside of the roof increases the integrity of the roof. That was brought into question all the way to the state of Florida. Okay? This is our good name. I want you to think about that for a minute. I don't want us as a county to get caught up in things like this. And if you don't believe the validity of what I've just told you, go look for yourself. It was in the news media. You know, we should not be involving ourselves with any organization that doesn't follow legal hiring practices. We should not be involved in an organization that says that they're doing something when it's found out that they're not. Like I said, I understand the reach to go get all the tax dollars or all the grant dollars that we can, and I understand the reach to go help as many people as we can. As a board, I think you have an obligation to look at their books, to ask these questions, to make sure there are no legal hurdles that is going to draw Santa Rosa County into their fight.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. And to the staff, and I'm not sure exactly, I'll just say Mr. Walker, and then we'll go from there. Do we have other avenues? I mean, do we have to go through someone between us and the grant process? Why are we using this, not this person, not this firm by name, but why are we using a firm? I mean, maybe that'll help us understand.
Again, Rebuild had asked for this. They are, I believe if you remember several meetings ago, there were people that they have a waiting list for improving the properties in Santa Rosa County. This is a funding mechanism that we're able to pursue without, in the past, the board has consistently used these HMGP monies primarily for flooding problems, direct program.
My question is, can we avail ourselves of those dollars without using this or some other intermediary?
We don't have another project that would fit the funding for this. This is just to allow them to apply for the grant to see if they would get it. And again, that's funded by the state. It's a state agency. They're responsible for who they grant with. This just allows them to mitigate properties in Santa Rosa County that, as Mr. Cooey mentioned.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that. I guess I didn't phrase my question well enough. It's kind of confusing me and it's bouncing around in my head. Do we need, in order to obtain these grants, do we have to go through somebody that does what Rebuild Northwest Florida does, or can we go directly to the granting source ourselves? And that's I don't understand it. It's just an open-faced question. I don't. Is this a necessary step, or is this a convenient step?
Yes, to do residential mitigate. We don't have a mechanism to do residential mitigation projects. We can, if they're drainage projects, we can do those as you have those in the past. But we don't.
First, Mr. Cole, Commissioner Cole first, and then Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you. As recently as probably 7 or 8 days ago, I spoke to Garrett Walton and asked him to find some time in the near future to come and address this board about quite a few of these items and where they're at, where they're going, how many citizens have been served. He assured me that he would. I'll follow up with that phone call and try to expedite that a little quicker, but I've had some concerns and made that phone call, and he assured me he'd be glad to come speak with us.
Commissioner Leitcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think as Mr. Walker pointed out, this is it's a grant that they have with the state. The state administers that grant. The state will provide oversight, auditing, those types of things. We all see the reports that we get on the CDBG to HMGP projects that we complete. The state comes in after the fact, audits the books, and then gives us the all clear. So the state's going to be doing the same thing with Rebuild. They have a waiting list for Santa Rosa County residents that last time I saw it, I think it was over 1,000 residents that have applied for assistance through Rebuild Northwest Florida. So there's a great demand for this in Santa Rosa County. You know, Santa Rosa County, our residents availed themselves of this program and used up the entire allotment of grant money. Escambia County, they still had money available. They were having a problem, I think, with residents using up the available grant money. So we ran out over here in Santa Rosa County. It was still available in Escambia. This would, in essence, put another round of funding in there for Santa Rosa County, if it is awarded.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salter.
Like Commissioner Lynchard, I'm going to support this because I have individuals from time to time who ask me, why aren't we getting our homes repaired like people in Escambia County are? And the answer is because of that low amount of funding that we get. So any amount of funding, we should approve it.
Okay, and so my primary question, I think, has been answered, but we'll wait for the expert. But the gatekeeper for this program is selected by the state of Florida, and that gatekeeper is Rebuild Northwest Florida for our section of the state. I assume, is that correct?
I would like to clarify on that. The county does have the ability to make our own grant application for whatever project, including the hardening projects. In fact, we have in the past sought our own grant funds to do shutters on homes. The problem is we do not have the matching funds that Rebuild has. They have other grant opportunities that allow them to provide the match for those low-income homeowners. That's one of the reasons why we more recently have allowed them to apply for those dollars. Additionally, because of the program that they have in place, they have a greater economy of scale, and they may be able to do 20 homes with those funds, and we might only be able to do 5 just because we don't do this on a regular basis. We would have to have the homeowner hire a contractor, which may charge more than the contractors that they use on a regular basis. This particular storm is a little bit different. We do not have a direct allocation of funding, which means it will take quite some time for those Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 funds to fall down. And they just have, they do these applications on a regular basis. They already have them built. They already have homeowners identified. They have all the information that they need that will allow them to more successfully draw down those funds than, say, if I put together an application. I don't have a current waiting list of homeowners. I don't have all those details. So they have a greater chance of getting those funds than I would say we do. So yes, we could technically apply, but I have greater faith in them being able to draw down those funds for our residents than us.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And Ms. Jones, just one final question. I know I'm repeating myself, but I didn't hear an answer one way or the other. In order to avail ourselves of these funds in an efficient manner, noting that we could do it ourselves, but we get a multiplier effect by using this, it's the state's job to look at that situation. In other words, it's their obligation to ensure that that person is operating in an ethical manner, and if there are problems, those problems don't become our problems. That's between them and the state.
And I don't know what the state looks at in that regard. I can only say that the state qualifies these applicants and monitors them based on the grant criteria. It would be wrong for me to say I knew what all of that criteria is, but certainly the state vets the applicants.
Are we opening ourselves for any liability?
No, sir.
I was just going to add to that. The contract is between the state of Florida and Rebuild Northwest Florida. Just because they're in Santa Rosa County's name, I don't believe that they would ever come back to us, should any issues arise. I mean, the same grant requirements that we have, they have final inspections, they have a review of every bit of paperwork, and I am aware of the concerns in the past, but I really believe the state of Florida would not be giving them money if they had issues or heartburn about the way that they manage the money, as long as they're following grant guidelines.
Thank you very much. We'll move on. Regarding item 8, recommend Rebuild Northwest Florida Incorporated submit application for Florida Division of Emergency Management Tier 3 Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP, funding for projects in Santa Rosa County. I'd like to ask Commissioner Cole to update us when you get the call back and share the data with us so we understand what's going on.
Mr. Chairman, actually what I've asked him to do is prepare to come before the board. So
that would be outstanding, and that would put the rest of the other, spread the information a lot further. I move approval without objection.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
I'm sorry, I
Commissioner.
didn't understand it. You moved approval without objection?
Yes, sir, I did.
Thank you.
Hearing none, it passes. Item number 9, meetings, unless otherwise noted, the meetings below or will be held in the boardroom, Santa Rosa County Administrative Center. They're there before you. If you're at home and can't see what we're watching, the data is available on the website. I move approval without objection. Hearing none, it's approved. Engineers report, Mr. Blaylock.
Mr. Chairman, we had a couple I don't
Oh, I apologize. We certainly do. Item number 10 is an add-on by Commissioner Cole.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It was just information items of some things that have gone on that we can be real proud of in our community. March 6, 2014, Gulf Power had the Power of Service Awards. There was 4 different recipients of the $2,500 check. Our own interfaith ministries, Shirley and Fred Cornett, were recognized there for all their years of service through interfaith ministries. And if you've been in Santa Rosa County at all, you know how the Good Samaritan Clinic and interfaith ministries has helped so many thousands of people in our county. So hats off to interfaith ministries for that. Then the other day, we also had the 2015 recognition at the Golden Apple Award, and I'm not going to name all of them because every school had their own Golden Apple Teacher of the Year, but the Santa Rosa County Teacher of the Year was Danielle Clark from Holly Navarre Intermediate School. Just part of the reason why, Santa Rosa County is so well looked at and moved to from people that, because of the great school system we have. And of course, on a more negative note, we lost a very, very hard-working person in Santa Rosa County. I just feel it's fit that this board recognize the loss in John Tonkin in our clean community systems. It's some shoes that will have to be filled by probably several people that John has filled for years for us, and he'll be greatly missed. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Cole. Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was an article in the paper today about the Santa Rosa Island Authority sending a request to Governor Scott to increase the funding available through the state for beach renourishment. I think they were number 16 on the list, and the first 15 would have received funding under the proposed, is it $25 million? I think that's proposed to be available for beach renourishment. I believe we're next after SRA. So I know in our annual legislative delegation request, we put in the request for additional funding or full funding for the beach renourishment program. I would ask that we send that same letter to the governor's office as well as our legislative delegation, asking them to do what they can to increase the funding to a level that will allow us to participate.
Do that without objection.
Without objection.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
It passes. We'll ask will you work with the attorney to iron out what?
I will. And also, given that SRIA is moving forward with their request, I've had some discussions before with SRA about where they were in that process and with Escambia County. I've mentioned before, if we could partner up and get on the same schedule that our neighboring counties are on, or neighboring beaches, then we would reduce the mobilization costs that amount to millions of dollars out of these projects. 30% of a project could be in mobilization costs, what they charge you to bring the dredge hopper and associated equipment down to your area. So if we partner up with SRIA or Escambia County or Okaloosa County when they're doing projects, the mobilization costs for them as well as for us would be potentially cut in half. So there'd be millions of dollars of savings there for each governmental entity. So I would like to ask staff to reach out to SRIA and see where their project is in the timeline, see if there's a possibility that we could time our project down on Navarre Beach to coincide with theirs, either before or after, so that we can save those dollars on mobilization costs.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree 100% with Commissioner Lynchard, and perhaps, hopefully, our legislative delegation recognizes this, but it wouldn't hurt for them to be cognizant of that mobilization cost and start planning, strips of projects. Let's put all these projects in the same hopper, and then all these projects. So we need to possibly relate that to them, make sure that.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I have, if I would, I met with Representative Broxson the week before the session started and raised that very issue with him about timing and the possibility for not just us, but other counties throughout the state of Florida avoiding those mobilization costs. And that was well received, and he's working on that issue.
Very good. I guess engineering will be the point of contact on this. Or okay, well, we'll tag you with that one, and look forward to a report. All right. That concludes the Administrative Committee Engineer Report. Mr. Blaylock.
Good morning. Item 1 is further discussion of the variance from the Land Development Code requirement for gravity flow sewer system for the proposed Pelican Bay subdivision in Working District 5. We just discussed this on Monday, and I've been able to confirm there have been 2 subdivisions that have been granted the variance over the years, one in the north end and one private subdivision in the south end that has a development order. It's been constructed, but they have not recorded the plat. So there's been two cases that I can cite. And then, of course, the retrofits that I had also discussed with several of the grants that we've done over the years. Mr. Kevin Dunham is here to address the board with any additional questions.
Do you have anything you'd like to say, Mr. Dunham?
Kevin Dunham, 2702 East DeSoto Street, Pensacola, Florida. I just want to add one thing. I think the upshot of that meeting that I took away from that meeting, our discussion, was that if you make a decision based on cost, low pressure sewer versus gravity, then developers like myself will line up to come in here and seek variances to do that. And I guess my question is, why haven't they already done it? If it's a cheaper way to do it, I've done 3 subdivisions in Santa Rosa County. There are many developers out that have done many, many more. And that being said, I think that if that set a precedent, they would, or if that was the case, they would have already come in here and sought that. And so the reason why I don't think developers, and the reason why, and the issue that I have, and I am seeking the option to do low pressure, because it's very difficult for me and other developers to go to a builder and to sell them a low pressure subdivision, because not only are you selling the lot, but you also have to convince them to pay $3,000 or $4,000 for a grinder pump. And I don't know any builder that really wants to do that. So it kind of makes it unattractive. It makes it harder for the developer to sell that to them. They either have to eat that cost, take less profit, they have to take away an amenity or make some sort of substitution in the construction of the home, or they simply have to pass that on to the home buyer. It makes it a much more difficult task for the developer. So I think, as Mr. Blaylock said, there's only been 2 that can be documented that have been done that, and I think it's for that very reason. It's a difficult thing to do. Now, the reason why the difficulty that I'm having is when this whole subdivision was designed back in the heyday, if you will, there was a budget that was laid out for it, and unfortunately, during that time period when the economy, we were going to flip this project, and in that time, the economy tanked. Our stormwater permit that was in place expired. The isolated wetlands, which I found out yesterday, from Wetland Sciences, they are isolated. That permit has expired. So now the wetlands have to be mitigated. And that does add to the expense of this subdivision. Not only that, but Mr. Lynchard might know that there's a scarcity of buildable land or developable land in that part of the peninsula. There's a tremendous amount of wetland impact. So the price of this property is considerably higher. The margins are smaller. And with this added mitigation, which I think is going to be handled on the state level, it does add to the expense of this property. And it does kind of blow the budget that we originally had for the subdivision. So I don't think you're going to set a precedent for builders for developers to line up and come in here and seek this. And I think it's fair and reasonable. And you know, this time next year, there's going to be a severe shortage of lots in Santa Rosa County due to the stagnation of development that started back in 2008 that you all are very, very aware of. And if you look at the data, which I'm sure you have, it's not just me predicting that, it's just a fact. It's been documented. And, you know, want to get things rolling and want to put people back to work and want to build a subdivision that's going to be great for your district and bring more people into Santa Rosa County. That's the basis of my why I'm seeking a variance from you guys today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
if I could, as I mentioned on Monday, I've done some work with Kevin in the past and will abstain from the vote on this.
All right, sir. We've read back up, we've heard this presentation. I move approval of objection. Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 2, we're recommending the preliminary plat for Heritage Estates. This is a 53-lot subdivision in Working District 1.
Details in the backup. Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, seeing none, I recommend approval of objection. Hearing none, it passes.
Then item number 3, we're recommending the construction plans for that same subdivision, Heritage Estates.
I recommend approval of objection. Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 4, we recommend the final plat for Duncan Ridge First Edition subdivision, a 48-lot subdivision located in Working District 5.
We've gone over this Monday. If anybody has any questions, speak now. Otherwise, I move approval of objection. Hearing none, it passes.
And finally, number 5, we recommend the paved road and drainage maintenance for Duncan Ridge First Edition subdivision, including Duncan Ridge Drive, 347 feet, and Island Drive, 1,517 feet.
I move approval of objection. Hearing none, it passes. Next is Public Service Committee, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one item that is recommend processing amendments to the following portions of the Land Development Code, LDC, as requested by the Zoning Board: location of wall signage, size of accessory buildings on large lots, outdoor storage in the M1 Industrial District, fuel storage for cell towers, and timing of waterfront construction for canals. I'll move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes Public Services.
Public Works Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is recommend rental of Volvo EC340DL hydraulic excavator with a 10,000-pound hammer from Mr. Whitfield. Wanted me to correct this. Davis, what was that again, please?
It's Cowin, C-O-W-I-N, not rather than Corwin as it's written.
We'll get that correction made. Equipment Company Incorporated at a monthly cost of $20,140, including transportation and environmental recovery charge for removal of concrete and other debris at the Baghdad Mill site based on comparison shopping. I do so without objection.
I have a question. I'm not objecting. Which fund is going to pay for this, and how long do we anticipate needing it?
We had received an email yesterday, but obviously Avis and I were talking that same question, is I believe that we've been, expect to be getting a grant that will free up a portion of the TDC funds, so we don't think this is going to take any funds from either the District 2 or Mr. Whitfield's budget. So we think it'll be taken care of within the grant.
Okay, failing the fact that it gets taken care of, is it coming out of District 2's recreation fund? Yeah, and do you have enough?
It would have to come somewhere.
We have not discussed that.
Mr. Chairman, I believe, and Sheila can speak to this, but I had a discussion with Sheila yesterday. My understanding is if it can't come from the grant, it would come from TDC funds.
In essence, it will come from the TDC funds. We have a pending Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. We have been notified that we will get the grant. They're working on the contracts now. So those funds will be paying for some of the items that I had previously identified to use TDC funds for. So I feel confident that those funds can come out of the Baghdad Mill site budget grant funds, which is not Commissioner Cole's or Road and Bridge funds.
Okay, just be sure that you run that through the TDC so that they don't get their hackles up.
The money that the TDC has allocated to the project is for general park.
Oh, it's already budgeted?
It's already, well, I haven't rolled over the funds in this budget year, but it was budgeted last year, but it is for general park development, so I don't think that they have a concern on exactly what the money's spent for.
I just didn't want us to have a loose end if something fell apart. Okay, it's been moved without objection. Hearing none, that passes.
Item number two is recommend Amendment 1 to the annual contract WS 845 with the Florida Department of Corrections for 3 work squads and supervisors to be utilized in the Road and Bridge Department. Do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes this report.
Next is Budget and Financial Management Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 1 is recommend Budget Amendment 2014-092 in the amount of $350,000, correcting the amount of the Baghdad Mill site loan proceeds in the Tourist Development Fund. Move that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2, recommend Budget Amendment 2014-093 in the amount of $6,685 for the purchase of 4 6x8 soccer goals and soil amendment for ball fields for Taggart Point Park from District 5 Recreation Funds. I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3, recommend Budget Amendment 2014-094 in the amount of $15,000 for the annual youth development programs at the YMCA from District 4 Recreation Funds. Do so without objection.
Hearing none, it
I
passes.
have a question. I need you to educate me. Why do we give a private entity $15,000?
We do it on an annual basis. I'd be happy to answer that.
Yeah, I've never heard this before.
I support that on the YMCA, and that money is used by them to facilitate daycare for working moms and the families that need some help so that they can keep a job.
Okay.
And so that's what that $1,500 goes for. It's earmarked. The YMCA
That's
has
$15,000.
I'm sorry, the $15,000 a year goes to underwrite quality daycare for working moms who, I don't know if you have any idea what daycare runs these days, but if you're working and you have daycare, it's almost a break-even situation.
I just had never seen it or heard it.
Yeah,
it's
that's
probably good, but
yeah, that's what it's for.
You're going to have people asking, and I don't have a clue.
I hope you help me spread the word because I'm really proud of that. That's for the single parents out there or the dual parent family that's really struggling. Both of them are working, and that helps their kid get to go to daycare, and the child is not left, in a room with a television and a bowl of Cheerios.
I'm hoping down the road that we're going to address the issue of like the Boys and Girls Club in Navarre or something, because my children did, I worked when they were little. So thank you very much for your answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Loretta, just, this has been something I remember us approving this time of the year for probably the 10 years I've been on the board, so it's pretty much, no problem.
It's the same thing. I just upped the amount a little bit because as time goes on, the daycare had gotten more expensive. But go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay. All right, so we moved out without objection. Item number 6, recommend budget amendment 2014-097 in the amount of $41,000 for extension of fiber optic capabilities in the Santa Rosa Industrial Park as approved at the February 27, 2014 meeting from the Economic Development Reserves. I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Commissioner?
I think you skipped over number 4 and 5.
Okay.
All right, we just dealt with item number 6, and we moved that without objection. It passed. All right, and you need to back up and catch.
All right, item number 4, budget amendment 2014-095 in the amount of $14,337, recognizing additional $14,337 from District 5 Recreation Fund to fund portion of the US 98 Medium Beautification Project Phase 2 as approved at the February 27, 2014 meeting. I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5, recommend budget amendment 2014-096 in the amount of $15,000 to increase the annual fee for office space at the J Community Center as approved at the February 27, 2014 meeting. Do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Somebody will go ahead and get that check ready so Kerwin Qualls can go back to Jay. I don't think he's going to leave without it. So, item number 6 that we've already dealt with. Item number 7, recommend budget amendment 2014-098 in the amount of $162,060, carrying forward funds for the Navarre Beach Causeway turn lane and traffic signal modifications as approved at the February 27, 2014 meeting. And I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 8 is recommend budget amendment 2014-099 in the amount of $62,350, recognizing FEMA HMPG revenue and required match for Phase 1 design of storm water and drainage improvements for Settlers Colony HMPG grant from electric franchise fee drainage reserves as approved at the February 27, 2014 meeting. Do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And item 9 is recommended county expenditures and check register, which I've signed and passed on to you, Mr. Chairman, so I do that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That concludes budget finance.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. County Administrator. County Attorney.
I would like to report to you all just briefly on an issue that there's been an awful lot of talk about this week out of Tallahassee. As you know, the county and about 11 other counties entered into litigation several years ago against the state's Department of Juvenile Justice, the assertion being that the counties had overpaid for secure detention costs through DJJ. I know you all have monitored that litigation, and it's fair to say that the counties have won at every step. And so now we are faced with the fact that from a period of about 2009 through 2013, the counties collectively overpaid DJJ about $170 million. For us, I believe that amounts to a number that's around $1 million. And so there have been numerous calls this week, another one tomorrow. Mr. Walker's organization has been involved, trying to figure out through budgeting at Tallahassee, how are we going to recoup our overpayment? How are the counties going to be repaid the $170 million? There's a proposal in the House right now to repay us about 70 cents on the dollar, so again in the neighborhood of $700,000 to us over the next 20-plus years. It's $34,000 a year. The Florida Association of Counties is supportive of the proposal, essentially because it's the only one out there. And I believe I think it's fair to say FACT thinks that if we don't support such a proposal, the answer will be that the backlog just remains on the books in Tallahassee with no repayment being funded to us in any way, shape, fashion, or form. I'll continue to keep you apprised of this, and I've not given you all the details. I'll write you something kind of lengthy so you know what all is going on, but you need to be aware of this. And you need to be aware that in the future, the proposal is for the counties and the state to share the costs 50-50. In prior years, whether we should have or we shouldn't have, the counties were paying about 75% of secure detention costs. So I do believe that the 50-50 split will result in a cost savings to Santa Rosa and other counties. The governor's, and that is the House proposal, the 50-50 split. The governor's proposal would put about 60% of those, 57% of those costs on us. So FACT is supportive of the House proposal. There is no Senate, there is no proposal before the Senate right now, but FACT's continuing to work on that for us.
Thank you, ma'am. That's going to be a very interesting situation to see if, common sense would be to pay us back at the same rate that we erroneously paid them, or pay us in full in one lump sum.
And that was rejected.
Yeah. Oh, well. Does that complete your report? Yes. Okay. Public forum. Anybody having business come before the board? Mr. Sweeney, you wish to address us? Yes. Okay. Come on down. Turn the light on there, David. Push the button, speak button, and the light will come on. There you go. There you go. Oops. There you go.
Okay. My name is David Sweeney, and I reside at 4024 East Johnson Avenue in Pensacola, Florida. I have owned 21 parcels of residential property and 1 parcel of commercial property in Santa Rosa County over the last 40 years. I have paid my fair share of property taxes to Santa Rosa County. Part of those property taxes go to pay the salaries of the county staff and the county attorney. I have complained to the county officials of an adjacent property owner being in violation of the Land Development Code for over 10 years, and particularly in the last 7 years. I have complied with the Land Development Code as closely as I have been able to do it. The Land Development Code allows an aggrieved party to appeal administrative decisions within 14 days of when he is notified of their decisions. I have filed with the Director of Planning and Zoning a request to appear before the Board of Adjustments and to have them decide whether my interpretation of the Land Development Code is proper or that of the county officials. I also filed the same complaint within 15 days of notification from the county attorney of the same information, which I am allowed to as a right under the Land Development Code. In neither case has either of these parties scheduled and allowed me to go before the Board of Adjustments and present my case. I have attempted to talk to them one-on-one to see if we couldn't come up with a simple plan that would satisfy me and be in accordance with the Land Development Code. In all cases, the county attorney, Becky Cato, have denied me a chance to talk to him and to resolve this matter. I talked to the county administrator just a week ago and asked if I could come in and talk to him, that I'm sure that we could resolve this matter. and he refused to talk to me. And I told him, all right, you can't stop me from going before the Board of County Commissioners, can you? And he said, no. And I said, you're not going to like what I have to say. Now, I would like to read a written presentation, if I may. I would like to thank the County Administrator for allowing me to appear before the Board of County Commissioners. I am 84 years old and in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Therefore, I request that I be allowed to read from a prepared speech rather than attempt to brief this board without such an aid. I tend to lose track of my thoughts when I think on important matters without having a prepared written aid. I am here to represent myself, 4 of my grandchildren who I have deeded my property to, and the majority of other Santa Rosa County property owners. I have provided each of you county commissioners with folders explaining the problems that I have had getting Santa Rosa County officials to read, understand, and enforce the County Land Development Code. I have submitted complaints to them for over 10 years in an effort to get them to enforce county codes and ordinances. An adjacent contiguous property owner has been using his vacant residential parcel of land as a storage area for unlicensed derelict trucks, trailers, campers, old tires, vehicle parts, and trash, while also allowed to have a dilapidated accessory building and a falling down privacy fence on his property. Such use of buildings and structures has adversely affected the value of my adjacent property and property now owned by my 4 grandchildren. Such use and construction violates Land Development Code sections 210.05A, accessory buildings instructions, timing of construction, and section 905.00, abandonment or discontinuance or non-conforming use. I am asking the Board of County Commissioners to vote in this meeting today to direct the Planning and Zoning Director, Becky Cato, to enforce these 2 Land Development Code sections and to issue a violation citation to the owners of adjacent properties, advising them of these violations of the Land Development Code and giving them 30 days to remove all buildings, structures, materials, equipment, trucks, trailers, tires, used building materials, and trash in accordance with Land Development Code section 905.00. The Director of Planning and Zoning, Becky Cato, and Director of Code Compliance should have taken this action on June 19, 2008. I would request that the County Commissioners take appropriate action such that county officials do not treat existing or future Santa Rosa County property owners as they have treated me over the past 10 years. I request that the County Commissioners assure me that the County Attorney, Angela J. Jones, and the Director of Planning and Zoning, Becky Cato, will read and comply with the Land Development Code, Section 20301B, Appeals of Administrative Decisions in the future, and that they will read and enforce Land Development Code 210.05A, Accessory Buildings and Structures, and section 905.00, abandonment or discontinuance of non-conforming use, now and in the future. These 2 staff individuals have allowed an adjacent property owner to violate these sections of the Land Development Code for over 7 years, regardless of my complaints. These violations have adversely affected the property values of my 3 adjacent parcels of land. These 2 staff individuals have refused to answer my written complaints denied me my right to appeal their questionable administrative decisions to the Zoning Board of Adjustments, as is my right under Land Development Code Section 20301B, appeals. I would like to thank Commissioner Robert Bob Cole for calling a staff individual and asking her to enforce the section of the Land Development Code that prohibits the construction of accessory buildings and fence structures on vacant residential parcels of land. His request met with no corrective action. I thank the Board of County Commissioners for hearing my complaints and how the county staff, from the county administrator, Hunter Walker, the Director of Services, Tony Gomillion, Director of Planning and Zoning, Becky Cato, and Code Enforcement Investigator, Randy Jones, and County Attorney, Angela J. Jones, have refused to enforce the Land Development Code and have refused to allow me to talk with them and provide them with a simple solution to our differences of Land Development Code interpretations. Should the Board of County Commissioners have any questions, I will try to answer them. Otherwise, I would like them to vote on my proposal to issue LDC citations to my adjacent property owner who has been in violation of the Land Development Code over 7 years. However, I have one more written complaint that I request that I can read pertaining to inappropriate actions on the part of the county attorney. The Land Development Code allows a property owner who appears before the Board of Adjustments to be represented by an attorney. I had asked my granddaughter, Sarah Carpenter, to represent me. She had just passed the bar examination a couple of months ago. In one of my unanswered written complaints to the county attorney, Angela Jones, I had annotated the signature section, copy to file, copy to Sarah Carpenter, attorney at law, Emmanuel Shepherd and Condon. The county attorney, Angela Jones, had the audacity to call Sarah Carpenter and to provide her with totally false information in an effort to dissuade her from representing me when appearing before the County Board of Adjustments. The county attorney, Angela Jones, convinced my granddaughter that she could not represent me and provide legal advice. I consider this action by the county attorney to be despicable and unethical. I request that the Board of County Commissioners take appropriate disciplinary action such that the county attorney never again takes such action to deprive another citizen or property owner of such right of legal representation. I would like to read for you what the county attorney said to my granddaughter, Sarah Carpenter, attorney at law with Emmanuel Shepherd and Condon. But before doing so, I'd like to share with you something I learned during my 25 years of military service. That being, when you are right, don't give up the fight. This is dated March 10th, 2014. I asked my granddaughter when she told me that the county attorney had called her to put down on paper, as close as she could, exactly what the county attorney said. This is what it says. Dear grandfather, on about January 31st, 2014, I spoke with the attorney for Santa Rosa County, Angie Jones. At the time I spoke to Angie Jones, I was your legal counsel in this matter involving the code violations alleged by you regarding Mr. Benjamin Moyer's land. When I spoke to Angie Jones, she explained that you did not have the right to go before the Board of Adjustments because the Board of Adjustments does not handle your kind of case. Furthermore, Ms. Jones explained that on more than one occasion officials had been sent to investigate the code violations alleged by you on Mr. Moyer's land, and that it was determined there were no code violations. It was determined that Mr. Moyer had litter on his land, but that was to be dealt with through the Santa Rosa County Police. This is the full extent to which I recall our conversation on January 31st, 2014. On or about February 5th, 2014, I spoke with Angie Jones again regarding the code violations alleged by you. Excuse me. Prior to our conversation, I had reviewed some documents given to me by you, and I had a few follow-up questions to ask Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones explained that the fence you alleged was in violation of the code was in fact not a violation. Furthermore, Ms. Jones explained that the accessory structure you indicate was in violation of the code was not in violation because accessory structure was built in compliance and the law does not require an accessory structure built in compliance to later be torn down. This is the full extent to which I recall our conversation on February 5th, 2014. After my conversations with Ms. Jones, I spoke to you and decided not to represent you as legal counsel in this matter regarding the code violations in Santa Rosa County. Currently, I do not represent you as legal counsel in any matter. Sincerely, Sarah Carpenter. Now, I ask only this. After 10 years, I've asked to go before the Board of Adjustments. I am entitled to do that. It's my right. The county attorney has denied me that right. And all I'm asking the board to do here is to vote on directing the staff to enforce the particular sections of the Land Development Code that I have mentioned. Now, all 5 of you county commissioners, I provided with a package of pictures and explanations and copies of the Land Development Code. And I have provided a copy of this presentation for the recorder here. So if there's anything, in there that you need to know. Oh, I'm sorry. I left one other thing here. The Santa Rosa County Land Development Code prohibits construction of accessory buildings and fenced structures on vacant residential property. This property that I'm talking about is a vacant piece of property. Therefore, all the buildings and structures that are on it are in violation. It also prohibits outside storage on vacant residential property without Board of Adjustment approval as a conditional use. These buildings were built back in 2000 by Jerry Broxson. He never got a permit. He's got electricals in the building. He's got water and plumbing. He's never had an inspection. The whole thing has been in violation of the Land Development Code since 2000. Reference, as far as outside storage on vacant residential property without BOA approval, I say reference sections 21005A, 60505B, and C, 20301, A through E, 70101, and 90500. The county attorney needs to read these sections of the Land Development Code. If you have any questions now, I'd be glad to answer.
Ms. Jones.
Surely. Mr. Sweeney has asked, and we have met and had several conversations, Mr. Sweeney has asked to appeal a code enforcement decision to our zoning board. He references Board of Appeals, which, as you all know, is now the zoning board. That is not the type of matter that our zoning board hears. Now, as was offered to Mr. Sweeney initially and a few times, and to his attorney, who did very faithfully report our conversation, he could certainly appear before you all at any time. It's an offer, if you will, to go directly to the Supreme Court without an intervening step, that he could appear before you all at any time, and he declined that up until now. But
Excuse me.
Wait just a minute. Wait
Yeah,
just a
go
minute.
ahead.
We'll let you speak.
Yeah.
We're taking turns now.
Well, I didn't hear exactly what she said there, so if you...
And Mr. Walker reminded me, Mr. Sweeney has been here before, but our zoning board hears variances, rezoning, special exceptions, those, maybe a few other items, but chiefly those items, and does not have the ability, if you will, to instruct our code enforcement officers on issuing citations. Mr. Sweeney's request today is get the zoning board to issue a citation. They don't do that.
Who does?
Those are our code enforcement officers.
Who
Mr.
does he
Randy
appeal their
Jones.
decisions to?
I'm sorry?
Do those decisions get appealed directly to us or to some intervening person?
I don't know that you've ever heard one before, but certainly if any citizen has an issue with the way staff has handled something, then it would be appropriate to bring it to you all or to Mr. Walker.
Can I speak now?
Litter complaints are handled through the sheriff's department. I should let you know that.
Yes, sir.
The county attorney has just told you something that is a bold-faced lie. And here is the reason.
I'm going to stop you. Well, wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry, sir.
I'm going to stop you right there now.
All right.
We're going to maintain a civil tone, or we're not going to have a turn at the microphone, okay?
All right. I would like, I don't have it, I have it in my briefcase. Could I read the appeals section of the Land Development Code? And it says just the opposite of what she's saying.
No,
Could
sir.
I read that?
Just one moment, please. I understand that you've got a problem and you don't feel like you've been dealt with in a fair manner. We're going to fix it so that you get dealt with.
Thank you. And
however,
I'd like to apologize. Sir,
yeah, I think you owe an apology.
I'm just
I understand.
very upset.
I understand that, and I understand that you feel like what you say is absolutely gospel truth, and I'm sure it is the truth, but the point is whether or not it falls within various codes. And so I'm like you, I'm a retired pilot and a retired CPA. That's our attorney. That's who we look to. So go ahead.
All right. I would like...
I'm sorry. I was speaking to the attorney because she wanted to interject.
Certainly no apology necessary. As I understand Mr. Sweeney's complaints, and there may be others, but perhaps I've boiled it down to the chief complaints. The complained of property is a residential lot with an accessory structure on it. That is a non-conforming use of that lot, no doubt. However, as we've researched the property, when the structure was built, it was on the same property, on a contiguous piece of property where there was a house, a residential structure. Later it was transferred, sold off, whatever, and it becomes a non-conforming use. Mr. Sweeney has argued that there is a Land Development Code section in Chapter 9 that talks about abandonment of a non-conforming use. Legally, we don't find abandonment of this. So we can I'll be glad to go through them all with you. I would like to assure the board, as I assured Ms. Carpenter and would Mr. Sweeney, we have looked hard at this. He has raised his complaints. They're looked at seriously every time he raises them. We do not find code violations. I've looked at every section of the code that he has brought up, read it carefully. Sometimes, I do understand why he reads something a certain way, but we read it a different way. I understand that. However, we want to be consistent in enforcing it and apply the same standards to everyone's property.
Help me with non-conforming.
If I own a residential lot, I can't go out and build a barn on it standalone, okay? I need to have a house there with my barn, or a house there first and then add my barn or my accessory structure. You can't just put an accessory structure. He's looking at a residential lot and all it has on it is an accessory structure. That's true.
And it's non-conforming.
That is correct. But when constructed, it was conforming in that the property, it was the same property or a contiguous piece of property. So there was a house and accessory structure.
It was okay then. Is it not okay now?
we don't, when somebody sells off the back acreage that has the barn on it, we don't require them to tear down the barn. It is non-conforming at that point, but certainly we can't prevent them from selling their property. We don't make them tear down the accessory structure, and we can't require them to build a house on the back part they sold off. So it falls into the non-conforming use category. So it is non-conforming, but legally non-conforming.
I will agree, although with the county attorney, that at the time that the Moyers purchased the property, that the buildings on it, the accessory building, the fence, etc., was a legal non-conforming use. All right. Section 90500 talks about how you handle non-conforming uses. Well, once Mr. Moyer bought the vacant piece of property with the accessory buildings on it and the fence, and was using the property for an unauthorized use, according to the Land Development Code, Section 90505 says that after 90 days that the new owner does not also have purchased the lot with the house on it, or another lot with the house on it that is contingent in touching the vacant piece of property, that the zoning goes back to vacant property. Well, read 905. It was legal when he bought it, but 90 days later it was illegal. And it says within 1 year thereafter, he is required to remove every article and everything from that piece of property. That's what the Land Development Code says. Now, in relationship to me not being able to appeal my decisions to the Board of Adjustments, I'd like to read to you what the Land Development Code says.
I'm not sure
Appeals section.
Excuse me, Mr. Sweeney, I'm not sure that's necessary to read that. Did you follow the fact that the land, that board that you're referencing has been blended in? It doesn't exist anymore as a standalone, and that it has now been blended into the zoning variance board?
Say, I didn't understand you, sir.
Would you, Ms. Jones, would you explain again
the function of the Board of Adjustment, along with our the other board? Those two boards were combined to come up with the zoning board, which is our only underlying board in this arena, if you will.
Well, all I know is how the Land Development Code, as a property owner, I'm complying with it. I don't care who the board is, but here is the difference. And I'd like to read this to you when she says that this doesn't pertain to my case.
I'm just concerned you're reading the old ordinance. I don't know the date of that ordinance.
No.
Okay, wait.
He is likely, or could be, reading one that is current.
Okay.
That says if you have any matter, you can appeal to the zoning board concerning any and all matters that may be taken by any aggrieved person.
Yes.
Well, then why don't we let him go do it?
Well, because that's just not what that board hears. It doesn't hear dog bite appeals. There are many, many things that are just outside of that board's bailiwick. The ultimate decision makers are you gentlemen, and he was offered an opportunity and is here.
This is the second time.
Right.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Just to quantify a question, something like the outlying building had to be built in compliance at the time it was built. When there was a home there, he built an accessory structure. That accessory structure had to follow basically the letter of the law at that point in time, i.e. pulling a permit, having inspections and stuff like that, or not?
There was not a permit pulled for this building, and in talking to our folks in building inspections, one was not required for this building at that time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Legal construction of the building.
Gentlemen, if I may, give me just a moment to try and gather my thoughts, because like I say, I have trouble. The land development code in this section that you don't want to hear, it says the following in decision of the Board of Adjustments. So when I appeal an administrative decision to the Board of Adjustments, or who now is a zoning board, which are unpaid, the way I understand it, citizens and property owners of Santa Rosa County, and that you people have appointed, when they have to hear my case, the county is required to notify all property owners within 250 or 500 feet that I am going before the board with this complaint. And if they also concur with me or agree with me, they are allowed to talk to the Board of Adjustments in this matter. I have talked to adjacent property owners here, and they will, either by testimony or petition or whatever, agree with me. Their property values have been damaged. But Section D says this: decision of the Board of Adjustments. In interpreting and applying the provisions of this ordinance, such provisions shall be held to be minimum provisions. The board may reverse or affirm wholly or partly, or may modify the order, requirements, decisions, or determinations appealed, and may make, have all powers of the officers of appeal directed.
Let's go ahead and bring this to an end. We're in a debate now where you think you're right. We depend on our county attorney for our direction. Here again, even if you had gone before our zoning board, everybody has a right to appeal it to us. We're the final stop.
You would have reversed the decision of the Board of Adjustments?
Well,
I'm just asking to go before them.
Let me finish. We are the final appeal, so we have the right to override any board that we appoint. But today we're getting legal advice from our attorney that says this property is a code violation.
It is.
And you're trying, well, not a code violation, and you're wanting to appeal that. Let's wrap it up, because this is almost 1 o'clock. I think this board, we're going to follow the advice of our attorney. And if you want to pursue it further with some type of civil liability action, that's your choice, but we need to move on.
Let me ask you, please, listen to me. The Land Development Code says this is a vacant piece of property. The Land Development Code in Section 210.05 says no accessory buildings or structures can be built on a vacant piece of property.
We've already been there. Even your granddaughter reviewed this, and she obviously agreed with the county attorney, so we need to close this and move on. If you want to take other action, that's your choice.
What action do I have, sir?
Sir, it's over. Thank you.
Good job. They're not going to go your way, okay?
It ain't.
Okay, any other body from the public wish to speak before we adjourn?
The federal government has a provision.
Turn your light on, please.
The federal government has a provision to protect handicapped people, and you can get which is what I'm planning to do, and what he needs to do is we need to get a the federal government has an ordinance or a law passed in 1990 in which they will provide, through the Labor Department, federal attorneys to fight in federal court any county or state officials that do not abide with the federal law protecting the rights of handicapped people.
Okay,
so,
and that's what we're suggesting is that once we make a decision, you need to go do what you need to do next.
Well, the next step is to go to federal court, so that in my case, I am alleging that this is grand theft.
Okay.
You know, and that it is, I have already started pursuing a federal attorney to sue the people that would be that I initially sued in county court, and they refused to listen. So now I need to take the next step of going to the federal government to prosecute these judges and other county officials. You know, in a county government, we really do not know who is at fault. But like I said before, I've made 2 complaints to the FBI, and they did investigate it, and they returned a letter to me. And after Judge Swanson, I'll call some names, refused to hear my case. The case went to Judge Burgosh. I pulled out the FBI report to Judge Burgosh, and he didn't even open it. So my next step is going to the federal government to enforce federal law in providing attorneys for handicapped people.
That's beyond our control, but good luck.
Yes, well, he has the same right.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken already? Anyone else who hasn't spoken already? Hearing none, we adjourn.